I call to order the regular town council meeting of Tuesday, April 7th, 2026. May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Andrews, Councilmember Beckman,
Here.
Councilmember Ravazio,
Here.
Vice Mayor Casissa,
Here.
Mayor Thomas.
Here. Councilmember Beckman is attending via remote. He has notified staff on 4/7/26 that he would be attending remotely today for Just Cause. Councilmember Beckman, what are the circumstances of the Just Cause of today's video conference participation?
I am participating remotely due to a contagious illness, which is defined as a just cause at Government Code Section 54953.8.3, subsection C2.
Councilmember, do you have anyone else over the age of 18 present at your remote location with you?
I do not.
Thank you very much. Can we have, actually, we took our roll call before. So now can you please join me for, oh, I'm sorry, that's right. We have to vote. So can I have a vote for attendance remotely?
Councilmember Andrews?
Present.
No, we're voting to allow. We're voting to allow.
Okay. Yes.
Councilmember Beckman, Councilmember Ravazio,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Casissa,
Yes.
Mayor Thomas.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion carries.
thank you.
The vote.
Will you please join me to pledge the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, then. Presentations we have, I'd like to open the floor now for public comment. Any member of the public may address the town council concerning any item not on the council's agenda. Speakers will have 3 minutes, and we will have a timer up on the screen if you would like to speak at this time on any matter that is not on the agenda. Seeing someone else, please step forward up to the microphone, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sal Rivas. I'm a 5-year resident of Corte Madera. I live down the street at 421 Tamalpayas Drive. My daughter's here somewhere. This is Eleni Rivas. She wanted to come to the meeting, but really fast. Reason why we're here is because we would like some traffic safety improvements on Tamalpayas Drive at Chapman, on the 400 block of Tamalpayas, starting right here at Chapman and Corte Madera. The problem is that the intersection of Tamalpayas Drive and Chapman sits in the heart of a quiet community. It's a residential neighborhood with one family, dog walkers, cyclists, children walking nearby the school. Yet the eastbound stretch of Tamalpayas Drive beyond this corner has become known speeding corridor. One drives clear. Once drivers clear the Chapman intersection, the road opens up enough that they begin accelerating hard towards Highway 101, treating the residential block as a runway. The danger is compounded by visibility conditions that make the corridor uniquely hazardous at predictable times every single day. Morning eastbound glare in the mornings. Because the sun is rising, people can hardly see anybody crossing the street or vehicles entering the driveway via their entering the road via their driveways. And then evening westbound glare because drivers coming westbound because of the sun setting also is very, very hard to see. And so I've encountered many close calls, and myself have had close calls at this intersection. The issue is that we also have a school attached to on this block, and a park where there's like kids running around, kids that are encouraged to walk to school, right? Or ride their bikes, or and there's people like walking their dogs, so on and so forth. There's been a couple of incidents. I've lived there a little bit over 5 years, and I've already had two of my cars totaled on that street. One, it was in the evening of January 9th. About 10 o'clock, a driver was driving eastbound towards the freeway. My car was parked legally on the street, and she picked up her phone and ran directly into my car, moved it about 6 feet, and totaled my vehicle. And the other was recently, about 10 days ago. My wife was coming out of backing out of the driveway slowly, and there was
Thank you. Please feel free to email us your comments if you weren't quite finished there.
Okay, all right. I did bring them back. Can I leave these with you, or
Sure.
you got that one as well? Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any others in the house? Yes, we do.
Hi, good evening. I'll just piggyback off of Sal. We live on 437 Tamalpais. We've been there a little over 14 years. And just to echo what he said, we've experienced the speeding on a daily basis on this street. But having lived on the street for over a decade, I've witnessed firsthand the excessive speed that occurs here. The situation has become increasingly alarming, and I'm now hesitant to allow my children to walk to Neil Cummins on their own, even with the presence of a crossing guard. Speaking to the crossing guard, I've learned about numerous instances where drivers fail to obey traffic signals and pedestrian right-of-way rules. I strongly believe that installing a stoplight at the intersection of Chapman and Tamalpais would significantly improve safety. And I just urge the department to carefully evaluate this intersection, consider implementing additional traffic control measures as soon as possible to prevent further tragedies. I've seen firsthand a lady get hit in an intersection with her dog and get thrown to the other intersection by the gas station, because this is just a speeding corridor down here, right? When you make this bend around the liquor store, it's just a free for all, and they're trying to, you got Pixley or this street here, and everybody's it's a mess. And I'm really hesitant to have my kids walk to school just because of how dangerous this street is. So thank you for your time.
Anyone else in the room? Anyone online?
We have a hand raised from Roy Wolford.
Okay.
Good evening. Quick question. What's going on with the video on the Zoom session? Nice picture of Piccolo Pavilion.
Is that your comment, Roy? I'm actually about to get up.
Well, it's not a comment, it's a question. I'd like it answered. I'm addressing the council.
Luckily, when our public works director told me about it, and I'm about to walk to the back to address that issue. Did you have a comment for open time?
No, I was just wondering what was happening with the video because and the audio's hard to hear too.
Okay, we'll fix that right now. Thank you, Roy.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. We don't have any other hands raised,
Other
Rosa.
hands raised. All right, then. Then we will move on to the consent calendar. The purpose of the consent calendar is to group items together which are routine or have been discussed previously and do not require further discussion. They will be approved in a single motion. Any member of the public may comment on the consent item, and town council, staff, or the public may request removal of an item for discussion as allowed. So, do we have anyone who would like to speak or open time in the room on regarding the consent calendar?
It's council.
Hmm?
It's council first. Usually ask council first.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. As you know, my name is Jeremiah Mock. I am anticipating that you will pass the ordinance before you on the second reading regarding the ending of the sale of tobacco products and establishing minimum prices. I just want to tell you that in doing so, you will make a historic decision, and you will join 70 other jurisdictions in California that have ended the sale of e-cigarettes, but you will be the third jurisdiction in the country to have ended the sale of nicotine pouches, and the third jurisdiction in the country to have prohibited the introduction of dangerous and deadly heated tobacco products. So I want to tell you on behalf of all the students who are away on spring break and couldn't be here, but you've seen testify before, that those students are appreciative of your efforts and look forward to seeing you end the sale of all tobacco and nicotine products in Corte Madera. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Anyone online?
We do have a hand raised.
Okay.
From Monty.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for letting me talk. Please reconsider this ban of nicotine pouches and the further ban of tobacco. The fact that the people that indulge in these drugs can drive down the street and still buy it defeats the purpose that you guys are trying to tackle. Why are we banning tobacco, but marijuana is legal? I never heard of somebody smoke a cigarette and
Monty, your audio is not working.
can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
I never heard of somebody smoke a cigarette and rob a bank or get a DUI. Marijuana does all that, and we're trying to tackle a product that doesn't even impair your driving or anything. My question is, what's next? I just feel like the small businesses like me are constantly getting attacked and constantly getting pinned on things that are not resolving any type of issues that you guys are bringing up. So we're going to be one of the three that are making decisions, but other counties are not. So let's focus on why they're not and not be one of those three that are making decisions that are not going to do anything at the end of the day. Next year, I would love to see the school and the students come and say, hey, the problem's resolved. But you know and I know that's not going to happen. So I think we should make rational decisions for this county, things that make sense based on, you're 18, you're allowed to do it. If you're under the 18, we should hold that under the 18 person responsible for those actions. There's legal ways to go about things and there's wrong ways to go about things, and everything's being dealt wrong. Thank you for letting me speak, and thank you.
Thank you. Is that
We
anyone
have
else?
two more. We have a hand raised from CFCA admin.
Hello, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Brian Lamb, and I'm speaking on behalf of the California Fuels and Convenience Alliance, representing gas stations and convenience stores across the state, including in Corte Madera. And now, first and foremost, we can all agree that tobacco should be kept out of the hands of our youth. Now, that's not up for debate here. Under the current laws, it's already illegal for anyone under 21 to purchase tobacco. Flavored tobacco has been banned statewide, and the FDA strictly regulates what tobacco products can be sold. On top of that, the California Attorney General's unflavored tobacco list that took effect at the beginning of the year provides clear guidance and enforcement tools. Now, let me lead off with some good news. Youth tobacco use has hit historic lows. According to survey data from the CDC and FDA, tobacco use amongst youth has dropped to 7.5% in 2025, which is the lowest since surveying began in 1999. Now, this decline is largely due to successful tobacco regulation that can only work if tobacco sales stay in regulated sales environments. Passing this ordinance loses the fight on two fronts. It drives demand to the unregulated black market, while the town loses sales and tax dollars that would otherwise fund vital tobacco education programs that have been proven to actually curb underage tobacco use. This ordinance also penalizes Corte Madera's local businesses like Mr. Monty, threatening their viability and the jobs that they support. Now, these retailers don't just sell tobacco or fuel, they are stakeholders and pillars of the community that provide neighborhoods with everyday essentials. Now, this ordinance introduces four major issues. First, a complete vapor ban won't eliminate demand. The FDA has authorized 41 vapor products as lower risk alternatives to cigarettes, and we're simply asking that these federally authorized products be exempt. Second, one size fits all minimum pricing is arbitrary and regressive. If all products cost the same, consumers may continue to purchase cigarettes rather than switching to less harmful smokeless products. If the town insists on minimum pricing, please set differentiated minimums by product category and align them with actual costs and tax structures. Third, automatic price hikes of $1 every 2 years with no review ignore economic conditions and will hurt small businesses. Any price policy should involve periodic review, not an indefinite escalator. And fourth, banning all discounts broadly penalizes adult consumers and compliant retailers without improving youth access prevention. We respectfully urge you to reconsider this ordinance or at a minimum amend it to exempt FDA authorized products, adopt category specific minimum prices, and replace automatic increases with periodic review. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, and we have one more hand raised from Eleni Negusi. Hopefully I said that correctly.
Hi, this is Anita Renzetti. I'm actually on a shared account from the county, and I spoke at the last meeting in regard to this proposed ordinance. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things that I was hearing, and one of the misunderstandings might be that this proposed ordinance is about sales, not making it illegal. So, for example, when if someone says marijuana or cannabis is legal, and now you're trying to make smoking illegal, I just wanted to point out that there is no part of this, it's sales restrictions to protect youth, and it is not about the actual use, the purchase, the use, or the possession. We call that PUP. Those rules, that would not be something that anyone would get in trouble for. It's about helping people quit. It isn't about making it illegal to use a substance that's this addictive. And secondly, I heard a couple of people say ending the sale of tobacco. This isn't what the current ordinance, the proposed ordinance is about. It's about minimum prices and pack sizes and other protections for youth. What it does and the sale of is vapes, heated smoking systems like IQOS, and also tobacco and nicotine pouches. I'm
Thank
hearing
you.
a beeping sound, so I stopped talking. Is that the end?
No,
Oh,
you still have
okay.
a minute and 30 seconds.
Okay, sure, of course. Okay, so I also wanted to mention that this, people are thinking, I'm hearing that people think that this is a highly unusual thing or that it's isolated to Corte Madera. But there are 55 jurisdictions in California that have already passed minimum price and or pack size laws. And there are more than 25 that have ended the sale of vapes. So it's true that the nuance, what we call the Fairfax model, being the ending the sale of the nicotine and tobacco pouches, is somewhat new. There are only a few jurisdictions that have done that. But in terms of the main aspects of this particular proposed ordinance, this is actually something that a lot of people are marching together with. So we're fine with whatever you decide. We'll completely support whatever Corte Madera's leadership decides to do. But I just wanted to make sure that those sort of misspoken characterizations of this ordinance don't stand. And I can answer questions if anything else seems confusing. Thank you.
We don't have any other hands raised.
All right. So council members, do you have anything you'd like to remove from the consent calendar?
No, I'd like to go ahead and move that we pass A through J or A through H on the consent calendar at this time.
Councilmember Andrews,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Casissa.
Yes.
Mayor Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
All right, then. Public hearings, we have none. Our first business item is to receive the presentation from the Central Marin Fire Authority on the historical and current vegetation management work conducted in Corte Madera and provide possible direction to staff regarding potential changes to the vegetation management program. And for that this evening, we have Fire Chief Martin. And I didn't know, Adam, did you have something first to add or? All right, well, straight to you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council, Ruben Martin, Fire Chief with the Central Marin Fire Authority. Thank you for having me here today. I was requested to kind of give the council an update of what we've been doing within the town of Corte Madera to try to reduce our wildfire risk through our different various programs. What we're going to go over here today a little bit is the historical context of what Corte Madera was doing for fuels reduction prior to 2018. And why I say 2018, because that's when the town voted and did a tax override measure and created a Measure F, which then created funding for fire prevention and disaster preparedness. And then there's going to be a small section of what we did with some pilot programs from 2018 through 2020. And then from 2020 on, when after the creation of the MWPA and Measure C. And we'll be able to discuss what was being invested into the town for fuels reduction then and now, and the differences between the programs, and then be able to take some questions from you. Okay, next slide, please. So historically, I started here with the Central Marin Fire Authority and right around 2017 as your fire marshal. And prior to that, we kind of continued what existing programs the town was doing. As we mentioned, is our defensible space inspections, since we didn't have inspectors, were all conducted by our on-duty firefighters. And so the most effective way, or not very effective way, I should put it, was a windshield drive-by inspection. So basically they would drive by and they would try to identify the worst of the worst properties, stop, try to make contact, nobody was home, and then they moved on. It was rare that some of these properties were ever reported to the Fire Prevention Bureau until they became to a point where they needed to be abated. And then we started creating nuisances out of them to try to get them abated. The evacuation routes were typically cleared through grant programs with partnerships through Fire Safe Marin, which at the time still is a nonprofit, but collected most of its funds at the time was through donations and or grants. Part of those grants were a PG&E grant that would be able to give us up to $5,000 to try to clear some of the roadway dead trees or hazardous trees to try to, and it was a win-win for PG&E because we did the work and it helped clear some of the dead vegetation around their power poles. And then Public Works Department had a set of, I believe, 25 or 30 rights of ways and or stairs, lanes, and paths that they maintain annually, typically through weed whipping. And then the fire department would sponsor maybe 1 to 2 chipper days a weekend. So typically we would be at the overflow lot in Nordstrom's, and we'd have a group of firefighters on overtime managing vegetation that was being dropped off by individual residents. So for example, a resident will do vegetation work on their property and then either load the the trimmings onto the back of a pickup or into the back of their vehicle and then drive it to the gravel lot and then allow us to chip it. That was primarily a goodwill effort. It was barely scratching the surface of any type of vegetation management that needed to be get done. However, it allowed for us to be able to assist the homeowners as best we could with the limited resources that we have. Next slide, please. So in 2018, if your council recalls, the voters passed Measure F, which was, I believe, a sewer connection that went from property taxes onto a sales tax, which took some portions off of that, which was called your sales override or your Measure F, that then created funding for vegetation management and fire prevention. In late 2018, we were contacted by then the town manager at the time that there was a private contractor or consultant within the community that was willing to work with the town on trying to identify projects on where we can utilize some of these Measure F funds. So the fire department worked closely with the consultant / private contractor to try to identify, one, what are the fire prevention goals of actually what's needed within the properties for defensible space? What was needed for roadway clearances based on fire codes so fire trucks and fire engines can get in and our residents can get out in a time of evacuation. With that, we've identified several projects and we've tried a couple different things. A lot of it was I'd go out myself with this member of the community and we'd go out and do community presentations to our local NRG groups or Firewise communities to try to identify what homeowners needed to do to try to create some sort of defensible space around their homes, and then assisted them with either chipper community pickup locations. Like, for example, we had established a location off of the Eastman extension over up off of Manzanita, kind of in that general area of Buena Vista. That was an ideal location we identified where homeowners can stage vegetation or your branches and whatever weeds were removed from the hillsides. And then a private contractor would come and chip it up, haul it away. And we had several of those based around town based on which community we were trying to target. And then from there was a program that was designed called Taking It to the Streets, which was then trying to identify evacuation route improvements, basically lifting the canopies of the trees that overhung the roadway. So one, our vehicles can get under there. We're having our red lights and sirens getting blown off the top, which would then eliminate some of the hazards of trees coming down onto power lines, which would then create hazards overall, both in the summertime and the wintertime. And so we did that. And then she also assisted us with some town nuisance abatements. In 2018, 2019, I believe we identified 4 properties for abatement in which we were able to do some direct homeowner assistance, in which utilizing Measure F funds, we were able to assist about 3 properties on trying to get them cleared in the East Corte Madera area. And then, as I mentioned, is the evacuation route improvements wherever we could and wherever we could capture some of this low hanging fruit. Next slide, please. And so in 2020, the voters of Marin County, after the 2017 Tubbs fire and the 2020 Kincaid fire up in the North Bay, decided to tax themselves and create the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority that then generated, which was Measure C, it was a square footage tax, about 10 or 11 cents per square foot of residential living space, that then generated approximately $21 million that would then go back to the local communities into 3 different buckets. One would be core projects, the second would be local defensible space projects, and your third would be local hazard mitigation projects. And then part of that, their initiative also was to improve evacuation notification systems, mapping or roadway evacuation routes, trying to look at what is the #1 cause of homes igniting these days in wildfires, and it was the embers closest to the home. So we came out with the approach of the house out approach. So where we start identifying through defensible space inspections and or home hardening evaluations to try to figure out how can we assist the homeowners in identifying what should they be doing first based on their highest risk and priorities. Next slide, please. And so if you can imagine in 2018 to 2020, the town was investing approximately 150,000 annually towards fuels management with our independent contractor with assistance with the fire department. In 2020, when the creation of Measure C happened, a lot of the work that we were doing were redundant, meaning that the same work that was being done by the contractor would be accomplished through our Measure C funding. And it didn't make sense for us to continue running two parallel programs side by side when we could probably become more efficient by merging everything under one program. And that's when the fire department took over the Measure F pilot program and kind of incorporated it into our Measure C overall projects, and with Measure F funding and with the town of Corte Madera's local funding match. If you can see, just imagine we went from 150,000 being invested to approximately 1.9 million annually being invested into the town of Corte Madera. And if you look at this slide up here, it's your 20% bucket is approximately 189,000 or 190,000, and your local mitigation is about 190,000. And so what we do is we combine those dollars, the 190 for the inspections, and we combine them with our Larkspur dollars and combine them with our regional partners of the Greater Ross Valley to then create how can we get the most bang for our buck in trying to hire inspectors. So what we do is we hire seasonal inspectors as a whole through a group, through a program that has been self-coined as the Marin Defensible Space Alliance, which includes all of Southern Marin Fire Protection District, Sausalito, Mill Valley, Corte Madera, Larkspur, Fairfax, San Anselmo, Ross, Sleepy Hollow, and West Marin in the county. And with the Alliance, we're able to accomplish about 24 to 25,000 inspections a year, which is tremendous as opposed to what we could do here by ourselves with approximately 189,000. You're maybe looking at one or two inspectors, and you're not really getting a lot done by then. And then our core funding, which is 60% of the dollars collected here in the zone, it goes towards what we utilize it is for evacuation route improvements. So everything down the roadways is being cleared, from sides of the roadways to removing dead and or diseased trees to lifting up the canopies. That then improves evacuation routes for our residents in the event of an emergency. And then it also includes the Greater Ross Valley Shaded Fuel Break, which is a 38-mile, 200-foot wide fuel break removing dead and invasive species, primarily all Scotch broom, French broom, anything that's dead and down on the ground. If you can imagine, it encompasses all of our entire towns, all the way from Ring Mountain, all the way through the bifurcation of Mill Valley and Corte Madera, encompassing the towns from the open space, water district, all the way to Fairfax, traversing north across Sleepy Hollow, and then working their way back all the way through San Anselmo and through the San Rafael Bret Harte Ridge, all the way back to 101. So it's kind of creating a little buffer space for our communities that will eventually slow down the fire, not necessarily eliminate it, but gives us as firefighters an opportunity to get into these areas to try to suppress it and mitigate the incident. And it also allows our homeowners some opportunity to be able to get out. And then, of course, with that general, on top of that, the town of Corte Madera also contributes 150,000 towards vegetation management for Measure F, and another 102,000 as a Measure C match. And that was a decision made in 2020 when we looked at both of our both municipalities that serve the Central Marin Fire Authority. that we wanted it to be 50-50 in the amount of investments being given to each town, because we realized that if a fire starts in Larkspur, it impacts Corte Madera and vice versa. Something happens in Corte Madera, it's going to impact the other half of our jurisdiction. Next slide, please. And then one of the other things, as I was mentioning with our seasonal inspector program, so we've partnered with Marin County Fire Department, who has the ability and the mechanism already in place to be able to hire seasonal employees. They already have that hiring pool that they do with their firefighters. So what we do is we expand it out a little further and say, instead of firefighters, we're hiring defensible space inspectors, which gives you a little bit different type of applicant. Because as opposed to getting young individuals who are just looking and striving to get in the fire service, we're getting more of the fire prevention professionals, the educators, the people that actually live in the community and want to give back, actually get involved in these programs. So last year, we hired 35 inspectors and concentrated on our highest risk areas. Within Corte Madera, we did 4,494 homes were inspected. And this year, which was the 5th year of the program since it started after Measure C, we actually did all the homes on the flats. So basically everything on the east side of Corte Madera, Madera Gardens, Marina Vista, not Marina Vista, but Marina Gardens out in that general area, and Mariner Cove, just so the residents who also pay taxes in that area can get a return on that investment, saying, you know, we're here to also ensure that your homes are safe. Because what we realized within the Tubbs fire and some of these catastrophic fires throughout the state is that the fire knows no jurisdictional boundaries and they don't know where the hills stop. And sometimes a lot of these embers will go down into areas that are traditionally not considered high fire threat areas. With that, we also did a little over 2,000 re-inspected properties, which were those properties that were deemed egregious based on our inspection program, and went out and did those again to try to remind them, you need to continue working on your home. And why haven't you opened your report? What can we do to get you motivated? And a lot of times we find out that a lot of these property owners are either have mobility issues or functional needs. There's a financial component to it. We're on a fixed income. Retirees, a lot of it is our elderly population. So at that point, we're able to identify these individuals and then try to provide direct assistance. And where our organization, as opposed to grants, consider them more of a voluntary abatement. Because we all know which property in our neighborhood is the one that's completely overgrown, the one that we're always concerned about being the most egregious in the fire hazard arena. And so those are the ones that we kind of go after instead of doing a court-ordered abatement that could take up to 6 months to finally get it done. It's just asking for permission to go on the property and do the work. Next slide, please. And then what we started last year program is a new communication plan. We're very fortunate that Central Marin has been embedded with Fireside, which is a software developer that created the Defensible Space Inspection software program that MWPA uses. And so a lot of times they use us as a beta tester for any new features that are coming out. So a new feature that they started last year was to try to figure out how can we become more engaged with our communities once we're out there and inspecting. Well, behind the scenes with all their analytics, they can see who opened the report, when they opened the report, why didn't they open the report? And what they started doing this year, instead of doing blanket reinspection letters, they would identify who hasn't opened the report and then target specifically those residents who haven't opened their reports or cleared any vegetation. And what we found is that there was much higher engagement and much higher violation clearance rates once we started getting those notices back out there to them. Like I said, we're very fortunate. Hearing from our lead inspectors is both Corte Madera and Larkspur are the least or are the most engaged residents in which they hear the least complaints or callbacks to MWPA. And I think it's because we've been doing it regularly and we're doing a lot of re-inspections. We're one of the few agencies that are doing re-inspections because we feel like there's value in there as opposed to just the one and done. Next slide, please. Chipper days. One of the things that we talked about between 2018 and 2020 were these chipper days that we did, whether they were a chipper weekend, which were 2 or 4 days with a couple firefighters who had no idea how to function a chipper. And then at that point, it wasn't very effective or efficient. To homeowners cutting the vegetation, putting it in the back of their personal vehicles and driving it over to either a collection point or a debris box that was staged somewhere or over to the gravel lot. What we're doing now as part of our inspection program is the homeowners do the work. They stage the material right on their driveway, and our chipper program that's countywide through Measure C, homeowners sign up and they will come by and pick it up directly from your driveway. And we went from 1 weekend to a couple days throughout the week to 6 dedicated weeks within Corte Madera that they come in and do individual. So you think about it, that's potentially up to 30 pickups for a single household. And then we also, because MWPA, based on the amount that they want to pick up, sometimes will limit a homeowner on the size of waste they can put out there, of green waste. So what we end up doing, and we've told them, if it's a Corte Madera resident, don't worry about it, just pick it all up. And the Corte Madera resident also knows that to call us directly, that if it didn't get picked up, we will have our regular contractors that are in the area doing work for us anyway, swing by and pick it up. And that's happened before where they'll ask, when is your next chipper day? And we'll look on the calendar and go, well, it's not 3.5 weeks or 3 weeks from today. And then they will ask us or tell us, well, I've got all this vegetation here that's drying. What do I do? And then literally within that afternoon, it's picked up. And so we do that a la carte service as an additional bonus that doesn't get recorded onto any of the stuff that's up here, but it's just something that we do. And a lot of times the contractors it's part of their daily rate of what we've paid them for work that they've done. They're like, don't worry about it. We're just picking it up. And for example, in 2025, we picked up 151 properties here in Corte Madera, which was equivalent to 606 cubic yards of chips or 4,200 cubic yards of waste material. That's a lot of green waste. And what you may notice today is that what we say, it's earlier on when the programs in 2018 to 2020, it seemed like there was a lot of fuel coming off the hillsides. And there was, because we didn't have a program in place. And so between 2018 and 2020, just think about ripping a Band-Aid off. You're taking the entire scab off, and now we're in the maintenance phase of it. Next slide, please. And then now into our fuels management program. So that was the overall program that we do. And now we're going to kind of break it down into smaller, more micro. So for example, in 25-26, under our Measure F funding, some of the projects that we did was some mitigation of the Tainer steps, where there were some big giant Monterey cypress trees there that were failing, causing both a fire hazard, a fall hazard, and then destroying the steps, which is a good resource for the town. We do East Corte Madera broom pulling. So as you know, it's the nesting bird season usually is from October through August 1st. And so typically you cannot run heavy equipment. So what we've figured out is we can still do work as long as we're doing it manually. And so we hire contractors that are out there with broom pullers, pulling it on the east side of Corte Madera, which would be whether it's Casa Buena, over Madera del Presidio, over off of Granada, Prince Royal, Constitution Enterprise, and all those areas out there. Then also we do areas of Lakeside Drive and Palm Hill. There's a big open space area there that's kind of on the Larkspur side. On the Corte Madera side. So we do it as a combined project with the Larkspur Measure C to try to make sure we keep that clear because we understand that if a fire starts there, it's going to roll up to Mohawk in those general areas, and then not Mohawk, but Seminole and those general areas down there. And then, of course, this last year, one of the bigger projects we undertook was the Quarry Meadows kind of open space or undeveloped area, which sits right underneath Fairview Drive. So if you go up Sausalito to the very top of Fairview, there's a very steep hillside that goes down. Well, residents both within the Hidden Valley area at the very end of Sausalito, Fairview have been in contact with us over the last several years of the amount of fuel and vegetation that was within that Quarry Meadows project or property site. So working with Quarry Meadows and working with the residents up there, we were able to get crews up there to clear, I believe it was about a 4.5 acre parcel of a lot of dead down material that was in there. They found a lot of appliances down in that hillside that we told the contractor, well, if you come across something and if you can get it out of there, just haul it out of there. So sometimes we were doing some rubbish removal as well. Next slide, please. And then here's a slew of both Measure C fundings that we've done through a lot of East Corte Madera, West Corte Madera, all through town. A lot of them are voluntary abatements. We try to do tree removals wherever we can, especially if they're on our fire-prone species, and we figure that it would be a benefit not only to the homeowner, but to the community. We've done Meadowcrest voluntary abatements, both at the Barrow property that was down at the bottom of, or at the top of Meadow Suite. And the Meadowcrest also some voluntary abatements, and then gone up there and done some dedicated chipper days for that community up there just because of the amount of fuel that they were able to get off the hillsides. We knew that the Measure C and the other chipper program wasn't going to be able to handle it. So we went ahead and contracted a special chipper just for them. And then also being able to leverage some of the relationships that we have with PG&E, been able to clear some of the PG&E right-of-ways that are up there of the major transmission lines, at least underneath, where some of our bigger hazards are. Next slide, please. And then I've got some pictures of what we did on some of the evacuation route improvements. This here is Redwood Drive up on Christmas Tree Hill. As you can see, we've pulled the vegetation off the roadways and then lifted the canopy up. So it's actually daylights the street a little bit and allows us to get out of there a little easier. And we've done the same through Casa Buena, Chapman Drive. If you drive through Corte Madera Avenue on the north end between our jurisdiction and Mill Valley, it's a park-like setting when you're looking up into parks and open space. That's all work that Central Marin has designated and coordinated, working both with Open Space District and using local funds for evacuation routes. And just a little anecdote is I used to, prior to all of these funds being available, I used to always know where the Mill Valley border started and the Corte Madera border ended because our side was completely covered in broom and Mill Valley was clear. And so that's where it's like, okay, what can we do to try to improve that? And so I think we've definitely made a dent in that. Next slide, please. And then here's other pictures of going up Endeavor, Edison, on how we've cleared that roadway up. On the right-hand side, the picture on the top are the hill path on the lower hill path stairs. If you can recall, at the very bottom of those stairs will be actually Corte Madera Avenue, and the top should be, I believe, portions of Edison or Redwood Avenue. But we've cleared that. Before that, it was complete canopy overgrowth, where if someone had to utilize that in a worst case scenario, last ditch effort to try to get out, it would be very difficult. And then, of course, on the lower right-hand side, you'll see a truck out there and a crew taking care of some dead and down trees that we identified up on Corte Madera Avenue that would eventually be a fire hazard. Next slide, please. Here's some other pictures. This is in the areas of Meadowcrest. I believe that's at the upper right-hand corner, or maybe even Meadow Suite. And then on the left-hand side is your Madera del Presidio area. And if you can see, strawn out in the bottom is a bunch of goats. And so we've been able to help them with some funding for getting goats for grazing to try to clear up a lot of the open space areas surrounding Madera del Presidio that then protects a lot of the homes on the eastern Corte Madera side in the Granada, Prince Royal, and all that. And then, of course, down below, what you'll see is the Marin County Fire Foundry Crew, which is a 17-person crew or vegetation management crew that is run by the county. That is then we can utilize through contracts with Measure C and through the MWPA, where we can get them at a fairly reasonable price. And it's definitely a beneficial utilizing them. And the goal with the Fire Foundry program, it's a feeder program into the fire service. So it was designed to try to get underserved communities and kids and youth that want to get in the fire service a pathway forward. And so the Fire Foundry program was created for that. Next slide, please. And then here is what I was talking about was the Quarry Meadows HOA property. So this is at the very top of Fairview, looking down the hillside. You can actually, prior to that, you couldn't see the village, which is all the way down at the bottom. You can't see the town center. Now you can. You can actually see the very bottom of the hillside on the bottom right-hand picture where you can see the drainage come down below. Prior to that, it was covered with 5 to 6 foot Scotch broom. And then the very top too is also the Fairview. Next slide, please. And then here's more pictures of work that we've done. Left hand is a tree abatement and removal that we did over on East Corte Madera. I believe that's Endeavor and Prince Royal area. Other pictures around the Tainer Steps. And then of course, the upper right-hand corner is a picture from Upper Christmas Tree Hill or Upper Summit, getting close to the top by where the communication towers are, which we feel is a critical infrastructure that we need to protect. Next slide. And that kind of concludes my presentation of what we're doing here within Central Marin, and more than happy to take any questions that you may have.
And if I may, Mayor Thomas, just add to that, this is I guess a conversation with the council stemming from a discussion that the council had on, I think it was February 17th, around the work plan. And there was a discussion about wanting to better understand how CMFA was utilizing the specific Measure F funds that were being allocated or budgeted to support and supplement the work that CMFA and also Marin MWPA are already doing in town. And so I think it's important to hear from the chief sort of the context and some of the history and the change in approach as a result of Measure C and MWPA's involvement. But I think, as described, it's really supplementing the work of MWPA, continuing a lot of the same programming that we've had in the past, but just adding to the work that's already being done by individuals on their properties and being available to support, whether it's HOAs or other property owners, in clearing out vegetation. So I want to just thank Chief Martin. Obviously, if there's additional questions, one other point I wanted to make, I think there was a question on the exact amount of funding that was spent in 24-25, and it was noted that it was, I think, 115,000. I think what I will say is that's on me for some of, I think the year before in 23-24, it was more about like $215,000. It was more or less an accounting change from one year to the next. 102,000 of the 115 in 24-25 is just matching Larkspur, but there was additional money under a different line item that was weed abatement, so another 100,000 or so actually was spent in 24-25 than was reported on that budget line item. So just with that, and that's something we're going to work on going forward, improve the accounting so that we don't have those inconsistencies year over year. But hopefully Rupi could answer some additional questions if you have regarding how Measure F funding is being utilized. And also we're here to listen to any comments or suggestions or things that the council may want us to look more into for specific Corte Madera programming, and just leave it at that. So thanks for that opportunity to elaborate.
Yes, and thank you, Chief Martin. That was a very thorough report. Sounds like a lot is being done. Councilmember Andrews, do you have any questions? I'll come back to you. Okay. Who would like to start? All right, Councilmember Ravazio.
So I have three questions. Thank you for your report and for helping us understand more about the wildfire JPA, which I think is a lot of our question, not so much what you're doing, but what we can get them to do. So my first question is, are there things that Corte Madera, either the council or staff, anybody can do to make sure that we're getting our fair share of resources from the wildfire JPA? I mean, I know they're doing specific projects in the county. They're a countywide organization, and I'm wondering if Corte Madera is getting our fair share of the resources.
I believe we are. We've got members that sit on the advisory technical committee. I personally sit on representing Corte Madera on the operations committee that makes recommendations to the full board for approval on work plans and projects. So we are always fighting for all the resources we can possibly get, and also trying to control the overall wide range of costs for MWPA and try to make sure that the intent of the measure is to try to get dollars back to the communities.
Right.
And so we're always working on that. And at this point, I think that we are getting everything that is, I should say, not owed, but that should be coming to Corte Madera.
Okay. And then you mentioned hiring seasonal workers. What is the season that you consider to be the mitigation season?
Well, mitigation is year round.
Well, okay,
However, when we
yeah.
start thinking about your typical fire seasons, traditionally the firefighters would come on board mid to late May. Sometimes June would be the training, and you're fully staffed by July 4th.
Okay.
And traditionally that went till about Halloween. However, we've noticed with climate change and everything else that's been going on, we're having longer, warmer summers, warmer springs, warmer falls, that now we bring on our inspectors in April and start training them so they start hitting the residents in May before the true dry season happens. Because a lot of times if we're inspecting them in October, it's almost too late. So we try to get them in late spring, early summer, and try to have them mitigated throughout the entire year.
So where that question was going was, I hear a lot of concerns from people about seeing canopies cleared and trees cut down now or during nesting season, which technically goes all the way till August. So are there efforts made? I mean, I know the law says they have to check and make sure there's no nests in the trees where they are cutting. Is that happening, do you think? Okay.
So our MWPA contracts with an environmental consultant group that we have access to, that if we're doing a project and need bird nesting surveys, they can come out and take a look at it. Also, the contractors that we hire are on the certified list of MWPA vetted contractors who've already had the training for bird nesting. So their staff knows how to look at and look for birds as well. Right. And so depending on the project, on whether, and the complexity on whether it needs a major sequel or not.
I just wanted your reassurance on
Yeah.
that. And then the other thing you talked about was clearing evacuation routes, where you were showing the opening and in the clearing. I know that the steps and trails are not officially considered evacuation routes because you want people generally to leave in their vehicles if they can, if the evacuation is possible. But is there anything being done to make, I mean, I saw the Tainter step work. Was that specifically to help facilitate safe passage on those stairways?
That was a portion of it. The trees were failing. They were diseased, and plus the trees were mainly on private property.
Mhm.
So it was a private public partnership with the homeowner. on trying to remove those. And so, yes, a portion of it is for evacuation routes.
Okay, good.
And then the second portion is for try to reduce or limit the risk for both the town and the residents of for any trees coming down.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Yeah, just a couple questions. Adam, just to clarify, so I can't remember, 24, 25, we budgeted 250,000. I can't remember. You're saying all that money was spent?
Not entirely. It was about 205, I want to say, 205 to 210,000 of the
Okay,
250.
but the bulk, it sounds like 80%.
Right. And then we do have, going forward, we're budgeting about 300,000 going forward. So we did increase that. So there is more monies available.
Yeah, okay. And that's a question. I have a couple questions for Ruben. One is, are we doing enough? Couple that with, like Adam just said, for 25, 26, we budgeted 300,000. And I'm going to change this from vegetation management. I like the words wildfire mitigation. I just like that verbiage. I think it's more what we're trying to accomplish versus just vegetation management. But we budgeted 300,000 for 25, 26, and another 300,000 for 26, 27. What for 25, 26, what's the money going to be used for? And do you need the full 300,000? Because I know some of these projects, I've learned this through MWPA, like with the shaded fuel break, they can clear, but there's a point of time where they're going to have to go back because stuff just grows
For
back.
maintenance, yeah.
Just right off the top, one of the first 100,000 is really that match that we spend to equalize the contribution to CMFA from Larkspur, essentially, because the local money's coming in from MWPA. There's a little bit more coming in from Larkspur than Corte Madera, so we equalize that. So that's just 100,000 of the 300. There's still 200,000 that is more of a discretionary pot to.
So I'm sorry, we put in 100,000, Larkspur puts in 100,000?
Larkspur puts it's at, well,
No, I can explain. So when you look at all the money coming back to the community, is you have your 20% of the tax measure that's collected within the town and 20 for defensible spacing, the 20s for local projects. Larkspur does the same thing, but because there's more buildings and more square footage within Larkspur, they collect a much higher tax rate, so to speak, or more comes into Larkspur, and it's about $100,000 more. And so for it to be equalized, so that way equal work is being done on both sides of the jurisdiction, Corte Madera graciously matches with an additional 100,000.
Okay, and all that work is going for wildfire mitigation?
Wildfire mitigation, and it all goes with, and we make sure it goes and it's concentrated within Corte Madera.
Okay, so I'm sorry, so we're down to 200,000.
Yeah, so we're down to 200,000. So that 200,000 is gone. Like I had mentioned, it's through the Quarry Meadows project. Right now, it's also, we're doing broom pulling in East Corte Madera, in the Madera del Presidio area, kind of in the open space areas, or undeveloped areas, I should say, and then other areas within East Corte Madera. So that's where we're kind of using Measure F funding right now.
So that 200,000 will all be used up
Yes.
then?
Yeah.
Okay, and then on chipper, can you go back to about, I call them chipper days?
Yes.
Because I know when Marla Orth was running the program,
Mhm.
I think that may have been pre-COVID for some reason.
Yeah, she started in probably around October 2018 is when her and I started working together.
Right.
And it went to about the spring of 2020.
Right, and I think she used to put, lack of better words, dumpsters in neighborhoods
Yes.
to encourage people. Are we still doing that program, or is it a spin-off or something?
No, it's because we're doing direct pickups. So before, instead of picking up, because the contractors wouldn't do direct pickups on people's homes. And so we were saying, okay, if we can't go to 400 homes, or like we did this year, 55 homes, if we can't go directly to 155 homes, is there about half a dozen locations within town where we can either stage a dumpster where Mill Valley Waste can come and just haul it off, or can we stage the vegetation to be stacked so then a crew can come by and chip it? And so those were the locations, just because the chipper program wouldn't pick up, my understanding wouldn't pick up door to door, as opposed to the NWPA plan, which is more of the door to door service.
Okay, and then as far as locations, do you go through, like, I'm going to assume probably with Todd Lando, you go through like a risk assessment thing to identify higher risk areas where you need to do mitigation?
Yeah, so we do, we've got a couple documents that we use. We've got the CWPP, or the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, that then tells you where your highest risks are based on LiDAR data, which is basically a radar flyover that looks at and photographs the vegetation and gives you the density. And so it tries to look at where that is. And then also we have programs where we can actually do fire modeling, that based on our topography, we can put a start somewhere based on certain weather parameters, and it'll show us a flow path of where we think the fire may travel based on those weather conditions. And then we can use that to target both evacuation route clearings and or any kind of fuel work. So that's going in, it went into play to try to plan the Greater Ross Valley Shaded Fuel Break, because that looked at, okay, what is the long range fuel spotting? How do we now mitigate some of that? But yeah, so we're using a bunch of tools to look at that, plus local knowledge as well.
Okay, and then one last question, double-edged sword. I know we can never do enough, but are we doing enough?
To be honest, I'm going to say no.
Okay.
And that's just being brutally honest, because we can always do more. And a lot of it comes down to, we can only do so much on public lands because that's what we have access to. The majority of the hazards, both whether it's roadway hazards and evacuation route clearings, the trees that are causing hazards in the roadways, or anything, is all coming from private properties. And so what we would ask is all of our property owners to please help us out and to try to reduce some of the vegetation that originates from your properties, primarily starting from the house out, and try to help us to try to eliminate some of those catastrophic fires that we've been seeing throughout the state.
Okay, I got one more loaded question, double-edged sword, same type thing. Funding wise, I know you would want money wise, but do you think you're getting enough? I'll say with the 200,000 that we're putting up, or do you think it should be more? And I know you could sit there saying it could be millions of dollars, but does another 50,000 or 100,000, does that help, or is it just not?
Everything helps.
Okay.
Every little bit helps. It would just look at, okay, how do we augment existing programs that we already have without trying to reinvent the wheel, or try to look at, is there a program that we're missing? Is this something that we're not looking at that someone else may have a perspective on? Hey, have you tried to look at this? And we say, let's give it a try.
Okay, thanks.
Maybe I haven't been paying attention, but the zone 0 where you're supposed to clear everything around your house, when does that become mandatory?
Well, that is the $1 million question that we all have.
So it's still in
limbo. So if you think about it, the state passed a law, I believe in 2023, that it needed to go in effect in 2025. And then we had the Palisades fire, and then the governor gave an executive order that gave the deadline of December 2025. And we've been kicking the proverbial can down the road waiting for Sacramento. And so it's still at the Board of Forestry. Last I heard is that they're having a meeting at the end of April in Calabasas to try to figure out the rule changes. And so what it is, it's the big debate, and not to get into the weeds, so to speak, no puns, but they're really trying to figure out what should be removed and what shouldn't be removed from around your homes. And so that's the biggest challenge right now, is the debate of mature trees versus no trees. Do you allow low ground cover, no ground cover, some vegetation, no vegetation, some pots, 5 pots of plants, 100 pots of plants? Because the way the rule was looking, it painted everybody in the same box. So whether you had a 10,000 square foot house or a 800 square foot bungalow, the requirements were the same. Only 5 potted plants. So what does that look like? So we're kind of waiting for Sacramento, and we're going to try to follow the guidance once they come along, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. So basically we're waiting for Sacramento, and then we would be expected to come up with ordinances within the town.
Yes, that would be. And so we would come back to you. So what we're doing is we're taking this as a county-wide approach. So that way all of our fire agencies can be in alignment. So that way, for example, we don't require something in our Greenbrae Hills that are incorporated Larkspur, but then across the street, the home is Kenfield. And if they don't enforce it, then we're really shooting ourselves in the foot by devaluing the value of that zone zero. And then we're also working with our partners at Fire Safe Moran and MWPA to try to come up with what they're calling an ember resistant zone in a box, so to speak. It's like a one-stop shop. If you wanted to do zone zero, here's a list of things you can do.
Okay. I noticed that you mentioned that you hauled around 606 cubic yards of material, and is that one 12-month period?
Yes, that was a 12-month period.
Okay. In the 19 and 20 average that they were clearing was 1,100 cubic yards.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we doing now that we aren't, what are
What's
we not
changed?
doing now that we did then that got the increased participation?
I think a lot of it is nothing was being done before 2019, 2020. And so I think when we started that pilot program of putting debris boxes, having chipper days, going through community wide, I think there was a lot of interest and participation from our community members because we had just lived through the North Bay fires. We had lived through the skies being orange that one whole day, if you recall. So everybody had an invested interest of removing vegetation. So you went from nothing happening to everyone doing something. So we were getting a lot of vegetation off the hillside. So now I believe our homeowners are more into the maintenance phase. So less and less is coming off, less and less is coming off the hillsides. So we're still having big numbers. It's just not the dramatic numbers that we saw in 2020.
Okay. I do remember before setting up that pilot program back in 18 and 19, there was sort of an internal conversation we had between, do we haul out the stick and start citing everybody to encourage people to do it? Or do we want to haul out the carrot and encourage them to do it? And I think the philosophy in that pilot program was, how many carrots can we get out there in front of the local populace so that they will do what they want to do where it's easy? Because right now, if you get a debris box, that's $250.
Mm-hmm.
And so.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay. Councilmember, Councilmember Beckman, do you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Chief, for the great report, and thank you, council members, for the excellent questions. This has already been flushed out pretty well, but I just want to hit it one more time, super high level. Chief, I think the request for this presentation came about because a lot of us remember that there are programs that, for example, the town or individuals or like community groups were putting together, in a prior era to deal with some of these issues, but obviously the landscape of who is doing what has been fluid over the years, right? And when these programs were being handled at the community level, right? This was before MWPA was even formed, I believe. So I just want to kind of ask you super high level, when you look at sort of the full picture of what we're doing right now, both through CMPA, through MWPA, but also through individual or neighborhood or HOA or community groups. Do you see any gaps either in services, mitigation services that need to be performed, that gaps that aren't being filled, or do you see any gaps in resources, gaps in things that aren't being funded that should be funded, or any gaps in where we're allocating resources where they could be better allocated? I guess what I'm asking is just high level, how would you advise us? Is there anything you would advise us to change in terms of how we're approaching wildfire preparedness, home hardening, mitigation, vegetation management, all of this?
Thank you, Councilmember Beckman. Great question. I think when it comes to fuels mitigation and fire mitigation and wildfire mitigation, I think we're doing a fairly decent job of identifying, removing the vegetation. The hardest part is, as you know, it grows back every year, but every year it gets better and better. I think one of the things in really concentrating, and we've been talking about internally with our staff, is there an opportunity to do a little more assistance with home hardening? Or do we have a program where maybe there's one contractor that does vents and everyone can tie in with that one person, and it's an easy resource that isn't going to break the bank, that is a trusted resource, someone that can go in there and help with gutter guards, some of that low hanging fruit that I think as a town initiative can help, that I don't think will break the resources or the bank. And that's kind of what I look at. And it's trying to figure out, how do we now achieve that? Is there a local contractor? Is it working with our Firewise communities? Is it working through our NRGs? Is trying to figure out, how do we now make that connection because I know there's contractors out there that can do the work, is how do we now get in contact with them, and what does that work look like? And more importantly, what does it cost?
And is that exploration underway right now, or do you need anything from us to help facilitate that?
I think that exploration is going on internally, both at the Fire Safe Marin level. I know Chief Lando and myself are always talking about it. I know we get cold calls sometimes from vendors who are trying to pitch a new vent that they're trying to get, and they'll drop off sometimes rolls of mesh, and that we'll have them test it out during Ember Stomp to see, is it something valid that we want to invest in? And so I know that's kind of happening, but I think it's still to the point where our community doesn't know it's happening. So it's, I guess, getting the word out. And we're working with our MWPA and Fire Safe Marin as the communications component of it to try to get that information out to our communities.
Thank you.
Something else?
You mentioned possible contractors wanting to sell a whole new vent. Can't you just get the right mesh and put it over the existing vent and make certain it's wired in place?
That is the easiest, most cost-effective way of do it yourself, 100%. However, if I believe sometimes within the California Building Code and the California Fire Code, when you're building a new home, sometimes it requires a certain listed product from the State Fire Marshal's office, that it has been tested and that it will meet the intent. Those are the products, like for example, Vulcan Vents is the one that has the intumescent paint that looks like a honeycomb, that when it heats up, it actually seals off to prevent embers from going in. There was a gentleman who came in that they had invented some sort of baffled vent that had some type of baffling. It just hadn't been tested yet by the State Fire Marshal's office. So they were here trying to do that sales pitch towards us. But yes, your do-it-yourself can do the 1/8 inch mesh just behind your regular vents.
But if we wanted to get the whole town doing it.
And you can get a contractor with a
Get a
giant
huge roll of
roll and
material
some
and
tin
chop it up into-
shears and go at it.
Thank you.
Well, I've heard some really great ideas here, and it, started bubbling up some ideas of my own. But the one thing I wanted to I always think that, when I hear something and I think, oh my goodness, I didn't know that was out there. I think probably a lot of people didn't. So I think from the communications standpoint of, for example, the concierge service that you were talking about, where, you have someone come out, you put your debris in your, front yard and they just come and get it. Those kinds of that kind of information, how does that get out to people? How do people know about this?
Typically, if they call us. And so we need to do a better job at that. And so I know Chief Lando and I are talking about doing better advertising for foremost the chipper days, is using our signboards out here that we have in front of the station that's advertised with a QR code. So that way someone walking by can click it and they can sign up, and we can have it all throughout the summertime. But I think I'll have to work with the communications director, Mr. Moriarty, and try to make sure that we instill that regularly into the newsletter, and then make sure we push that out within our social media. But yeah, that's definitely a component we can do better at.
Mhm. And hopefully the NRGs would love to have
Yes.
this information. And I also think when we were talking about materials, so that, you know, people can harden their homes, it might be interesting to have sort of a fair to, you know, where people can come and just learn about the products and learn about the vendors and learn about, and, you know, not necessarily that the town would push one or the other, because I don't think that's something that we do, that we, you know, push for a private business. But if they could just maybe come to the fire station or the, you know, any, you know, the community center and just get an idea of what's available. And I think, you know, the easier we make it for people to comply and to make these changes, maybe when they're remodeling or they're moving into a new home, that's when things get done. Once you've been there 30 years, you're just kind of stuck. But once people are making changes, I think the information part of it and the communication part of it is really key. And if there's funds you need for that, or, you know, any kind of support you need for that, I think that would be really, we'd be all for it. I think that's what I was saying about making it easy and the zero zone. Oh yeah, also like with the zero zone landscaping, I think a lot of people guilty. I don't have that, but it's kind of figuring out how do you do that, and it's still, you know, how do you start that process? And so sort of having landscapers that know what a zero would look like and helping people, you know, get that information. I think that would be really, really helpful. So with that, I think we will, yes, we'll take public comment now.
The short people. Thank you for the amazing description of everything you've done. I had three things that I wanted to bring up. One is the Knox box idea. This came up at the Disaster Preparedness Fair, and it came up at the Disaster Preparedness Committee on Monday. That the number of people who live alone and there's no access to get into their house. I understand that you will knock the door down if you can't get in, if somebody's in trouble. But I would love to get a program going and a flyer and get the word out, just like we were talking about, how do you market these things? After I heard about that it's feasible, I was going to go home and make a flyer, and I thought, no, I'll leave it to you. But I would love to get that started, and the Rachel was very excited about it too. So let's make that happen. I'm wondering about more goats. Is it more cost effective to have people with the broom thing, or is it more cost effective for the goats to have the broom thing? So I love the idea of using the goats, and they get fed. There was talk about if the 0 to 5 is finally signed, then we would have to make a local ordinance. But it seems like the state law then would prevail with the descriptions of what, because I can't imagine the discussions that would take place in here if you told everybody you have to get rid of your landscaping. So trying to prevent that. And thank you for the condo that I live in on Casa Buena. Did wonderful Measure C funded work on clearing the property and limbing up some of the trees right on Casa Buena. It would have cost us a fortune to pay the landscaper. So thank you for that.
Hi, Chief Martin. Thank you for your report and for your service. This is an issue that is almost as near and dear to my heart as tobacco, and for some of the same reasons. I wanted to ask, and forgive me if this has already been covered, but what your thoughts are about the evacuation drill that was done in Mill Valley. It seems that that's something that our community could potentially really benefit from, learning not only what they discovered, which I find summarized as problems with too many people trying to use too many cars to evacuate, that they had difficulties with contraflow of traffic. I lived in Japan, and in Japan, they have a traffic signal system that faces in both directions to allow the use of all lanes going in one direction. There were also some problems with alert system gaps. Pat Ravazio in particular has talked many times about the importance of restoring the radio communication system. The issues that you know that are ongoing about interagency coordination and trying to strengthen that, and then timing the drill in a more real world situation rather than on a Saturday where they managed to get most people in 30 minutes out to the highway, but obviously in different conditions, particularly during peak traffic times, like in the evening with people all trying to drive in. Those are all issues that they faced. And so I just want to encourage you. I'm sure you've been thinking about this, and I think it would be a fantastic move for us to build on their success and do it ourselves so that we can see for real what actually happens.
Do we have any raised hands online?
Yes, we do. We have a hand raised from Marla Orth.
Good evening. This is Marla Orth. I'm the she. It's actually me. I was the person who approached the town back in early 2018 due to my concern and the proselytization by my brother-in-law, David Orth, who was the then deputy fire chief for Berkeley and who was the spokesperson for the Oakland conflagration. He scared the bejesus out of me, and I got a lot of religion. I knew nothing about that. I was a CEO of healthcare companies, but I became quite passionate about it. I actually approached the prior town manager, Todd Cusimano, to do a pilot on Meadow Crest because we are on the border of open space and on the direct trajectory for many fires emanating out of Mill Valley. So he agreed to let me do a pilot here on Meadow Crest. That was early 2018. And based on that, he agreed to let us expand it, not in a pilot, but as a real thing. I was one of the co-authors of Measure F. Implicit in Measure F was $350,000 was to come off the top of our sales tax override specific to vegetation management. We never spent that amount of money because we got really good at what we did. And I worked very close with Ruben on that. I think what distinguished what we did then versus what is going on now is I worked intimately with the neighborhoods and making the vegetation management a neighborhood initiative. The chipper locations were agreed upon by the local residents, and we had many of them. We used actually very few dumpsters. What I think attributed the huge volume that we were able to take off, yes, in part it was because of the prior fires, but I think it was the community engagement and the community competitiveness. And it really did work. So the volumes were significant and the neighbors felt very proud of it. I am still getting phone calls 5 years later asking, can I organize a neighborhood chipper party? I had a lot of calls up until a couple of years ago when I finally realized my phone number was still on the website. What I would love to suggest, because I'm still passionate about it, I haven't stopped doing it, is to do the chipper programs on a neighborhood basis rather than to have to go on site to get a reservation, which are hard to get. It's first come, first serve. Reinitiate those. I don't care who does it, but it was a great program. I'm very proud of it. I think the town did a great job. Thank you.
We don't have any other hands raised from attendees online, and we didn't receive emailed public comment for this item.
Okay, thank you. So I'll bring it back to the council for comments.
I don't think we need to make any action, so thank you and keep up the good work. Appreciate it.
I just have a couple comments. One thing is, I like to see Ruben come back every year for an annual report on this. It's similar to what we did with Central Room Police, because I think it's important that it stays in the forefront. Something that Rosa said about communication, I think you're right, Ruben. I think you should partner with the town for the chipper days. And you may want to think about picking a month or a week or a couple of weeks and doing a marketing blitz and just hit it really heavy, even though I know it may be during the year. And something that Marla said, I would suggest you try at least this year a couple of pilot programs in Christmas Tree Hill and maybe in Chapman on doing what Marla mentioned about putting chippers in the neighborhoods and just seeing how that works out. It doesn't have to be town-wide, but just start in there, because the heavy area to me, it's more Christmas Tree Hill, but it could be also Chapman. And so you can just start out small, and if they're successful, we can figure it out.
So I need to make a comment on that, which is I was able, after you told me that the Marin Wildfire group was doing the chipper, I have them booked. They are going to bring a chipper to my house on June 2nd. So I don't think we should be asking the town to do things if we have the county who's right there. All you got to do is go online and book the day you want them to come. Get your neighborhood together. I don't think we should be having the town do things that others are already programmed and willing to do, and all you got to do is go online and sign up for
I
it.
think the difference is, though, it's one thing if I have to go online, it's another thing if you stick a chipper on Christmas Tree Hill and say, hey, we have a chipper on this whatever day it is over the weekend. I think it would encourage people because they know it's there just to go there.
So I will
Them having to
contact
go
my,
through it.
I will
Hold on, hold
contact
on.
my
Let me
neighbors
finish.
and let them know.
Instead of them going through an online thing, I think people, especially on Christmas Tree Hill, may be more encouraged if they know it's there to do the work. And again, you don't have to do a full town. Try it and see if it works.
All right, then. We have another client.
I would agree with Fred's idea of selecting a few neighborhoods and just seeing if we, the whole town, how should I put it? Certain neighborhoods we know need to concentrate on clearing the brush. The whole town needs to clear brush, but some areas are more prone to it than others. And, once you clear the brush on your property, there's still the issue of what do you do with all the waste? And if we can select 2 or 3 and then have somebody on the town staff let the neighborhood know that on this date, there'll be a chipper. And it doesn't have to be the same person. You could have one person do the marketing and another person actually overseeing the folks running the chipper, and just, see if you can get it done. Because as I said, when Marla was running it, they were hauling around 1,100 cubic yards of material off our hills every month on average. And now we're down to 606 for the whole year.
That was 606 chipped yards of
Marla's
chips
doing
versus
700.
4,400 yards of actual material. It was, I believe it was 4,400 yards of material that was chipped down to 606 cubic yards of.
I know, and Marla chipped down to 1,100 per month. So, it's a difference in, we were up here, now we're down here. So it's, anyway.
Okay.
Town Manager Wolf, did you?
Thanks. Yeah, I think appreciate the suggestions and comments from the council. What I'd appreciate is that Chief Martin and I get a chance to sort of take in the information. One thing I do want to point out, some of this as well, I think does relate to capacity. And so if there is a need for additional staff to sort of support this, that's something we may want to consider or maybe needed to implement these in an effective way. So I just want to raise that. I think we have obviously already good ways of doing some of this, but let me just, I'd like to have an opportunity to talk to Chief Martin and explore some possible responses and thoughts on how to take those suggestions and turn them into some action. And with, I'll just coordinate that prior to the next budget amendment process, which we're not to your budget, but we can talk about that in May and June.
Okay. Have we lost Councilman Beckman?
No.
Oh, there you are. Hello. All right. Would you like to add any comments?
No, thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Well, I think this has been a very informative presentation and a very good discussion about, where we want to go forward. And once again, without at the risk of repeating myself, I think information about where to go next and, for the community, how to get in touch with setting up services and the importance of them, anything we can do to help people understand the importance of vegetation management wherever they are, because I was sent by David Stainbrook. He sent me a report about embers, and we're a very windy town, and so it doesn't matter where a fire starts, the embers can be taken for miles, and so it's a responsibility for all of us, and how to reduce that issue is information we all need. So thank you. And on that, we accept the report. We do not have anything to vote on, and so we'll move on to the next topic. And thank you so much for coming. All right.
Thank you.
So our next item, business item, is 6B, consideration and possible action to authorize the Director of Public Works to approve the plans and contract documents authorizing the advertisement of bids and award a construction contract to the lowest responsible and responsive bidder for the base bid amount not to exceed $360,000 plus a 10% contingency on the Corte Madera Intergenerational Center and Chamber of Commerce tenant improvements. And for that, we have Adam Wolf.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor Thomas and council members. This is typically, well, let me just start by saying I'm going to kick this off. This is typically an item that Chris Good would be giving the report. However, I've been so involved in this project for the last couple of years, I'm going to lead it off at least. We also have Rosalind Brandt here, our consultant, who's been an amazing assistance and help, not only with her expertise as an interior designer, but also in convening working groups and stakeholder meetings to move this process along. And Chris Good is here. He's on remote as well, online, and he's joining us from his spring break vacation, but I think it's important that he's here as well. It just speaks to really the huge team effort that this process has required as we are here today, I think, on another milestone as we march towards sort of the implementation and creation of the town's new intergenerational center. Obviously, the item we're here for today is listed in the staff report, and it is requesting that the town council authorize the Director of Public Works to advertise the bids and award a construction contract to the lowest responsible and responsive bidder. We're going to get into that part, but just because it's been, I think it was almost exactly 2 years ago where we first embarked on the process of feasibility, whether we could do this. This was in March 2024. We decided the council decided at that time to move forward. And you can go into the background slide here on the next page. As part of the work plan in 2024, this was about really embarking on feasibility. At that time in 2024, it was decided the appropriate approach was to look for leasing space for this center, potentially as a bridge space to a more permanent home that might be part of a future Park Madera Center. And we embarked on looking at a variety of spaces. About a year ago, we came back to the town council in April of 2025, staff did, and with the support of the town council subcommittee and our stakeholders here, the council authorized the town manager to enter into a lease with the owners of the property at Tam Ridge, or the mountain. Now it's called, what is it called? Bellmount Tam, 195 Tamil Vista Boulevard. And so at that point, we not only myself with the town attorney at the time and the support of the town council subcommittee. So I just want to really recognize Councilmember Casisa and Councilmember Ravazio for the support along this journey to get to this point. We negotiated a lease that was signed on November 6th, 2025 with Tam Ridge LP, or BCF Tam Ridge LP. And at the same time, there was also authorization to enter into a donation agreement with age-friendly Corte Madera. And so I also want to recognize, of course, the reason why we're all here, our stakeholders, and really the great advocates for overall well-being of our older adult community, and really the continuation of the intergenerational center that started. I think we talked about 2018 a lot. Well, we're continuing to talk about from 2018 to now. So Patty Stolier, who leads Age Friendly Corte Madera, Carla Condon, whose town is also hired as our consultant now for this project, but also of Age Friendly Solutions, a nonprofit, and continuing to run that organization today. So we signed the donation agreement on June 13th, 2025, which is really tailored to help the town offset costs of operating the intergenerational center. And since November 6th, when the lease was signed, that's when we really moved into high gear to start to prepare the technical plans for building permit. We had full engineering plans. We actually, on the next slide, I think we highlight all the different players involved. But on the right, on the boxes on the below right, I went ahead and hired several consultants that were intended to support the design of this space and really make sure that we could actually build out a space in accordance to code, along with all the project goals, which were described in the April 2025 meeting. But I would say, just from the starting point, we came at this project with the idea that we really wanted to reuse as much of this existing infrastructure as we could to keep costs down as much as possible. But we have a full set now at this point of design plans, including mechanical and electrical engineering, architectural drawings, and of course, with Rosalind's help, a full set of specifications that are part of this bid package. That's actually the document that will be used to advertise for bid, is the full plan set. It will also be used for obtaining a building permit that is required to actually start construction. I mentioned our ad hoc subcommittee, council subcommittee, but I also want to recognize many people who have been involved in from the town side of this in supporting our council subcommittee, myself, in creating this vision that is here today, before us today. Tim Barry from Parks and Recreation, our director, of course, who's been ultimately going to be operating this facility. Also, I think Amy's here from Community Development, supporting us with, town did receive a conditional use permit in August of last year, so that's been taken care of. And Bernie Zapay, I really want to thank him that we've used our internal resources to really support the review of the plans, make sure it's all code compliant. And of course, Chris Good, who you'll be hearing from later today, and will be responsible for managing the bid. This will go out to public bid. Myself and Chris Petlock from finance, and our town attorney. So a lot of players involved to get to this point today. And I don't need to, if you go to the next slides, I'm going to kick it over to Rosalind here in a minute, but for a reminder for those who may be tuning in for the first time, the space we are talking about is the former Andy's Market space at 195 Tamil Vista Boulevard. It's within a newer apartment building, obviously at the corner of Warnham Drive and Tamil Vista Boulevard, and easily accessed from a lot of bike and ped facilities. Go on, next slide. 14 dedicated parking spaces, 10 in the garage with direct access to the center. We're going to reuse that interior doorway and entrance. And next slide. This is some images of the interior of the space currently. The one on the left is showing the larger amenity space. And we can come back to these, Rosalind, if you want to speak to some of these when we get to your part of the presentation. And next slide. This is now looking at sort of it's an L-shaped space towards the Chamber of Commerce office, and the bathroom in the back left corner. The new bathroom would be constructed. And just wanted to go over, these were part of the lease terms and have now been baked into the agreed to lease. So the monthly cost in year one with increases, 3% increases in years 2 to 5. Importantly, there are 2 3-year options on the lease. So if the town so chooses at the end of 5 years, could extend that lease for another 6 years. In terms of the lease start date, that's really going to be dependent upon the earlier of when the town either is ready to open and occupy the space, or 7 months after the issuance of building permits. And so we have not issued actually building permits at this time. We actually control when that will happen. Another important point there, we did negotiate some credits for the construction and fit out of the space of $43,000. In addition, there's 3 months of base rent free once the lease starts at the beginning of the lease term. We will be responsible for insurance and taxes and janitorial expenses as well. And so this was what we had presented back in April of 2025. And I bring this back just to show when we get to Rosalind, I'll kick it over to you now at this point. But essentially, we've tried to keep the space really true to the original intent that was laid out here in April of 2025. There are some changes. And at this point, I think, Rosalind, I'm gonna hand it over to you to describe the space. And then after that, we can talk about, and let me know if you need anything. Yes, so the next slide shows the current floor plan. It's sort of in the same alignment as the last space. So it's sort of flipped, but you can't read the writing anyways. So is that helpful?
That's great.
If you want me to point to anything, I'm happy to point to anything as well.
I'm going to start here. So I know many of you in this room, and it's been lovely working with all of you that I've worked with. For the people that don't know me, just a really quick little bit about me. I've been a commercial only interior designer, space planner, specifier, and project manager for 45 years. I've had my company. I can't believe it either. So it's pretty amazing. This has been a joy to work with. It's actually, when I first walked into this space, I thought, this is weird space, but it's great for what you're doing. The natural light, the location, there are so many great pieces of the space, and it makes it fun to, not only fun, but I think it's going to be very effective. We've tried, as Adam said, we've tried to maximize the use of the existing electrical, plumbing, mechanical. Those are the expensive pieces of any of this. And we've tried to maximize the reuse of that. Of course, because it was Andy's market, we did have quite a bit of possibilities to reuse. So that worked out really well for us. That doesn't mean that we didn't still have to do quite a bit, cap off elements, put in new elements, put in some walls, but really we were able to maximize the use of the space. We have worked very much with all the groups that Adam talked about to try to reflect what the needs were of this of the center. And of course, one of the great pieces that I kept hearing was we need more storage for the many things that they do. So we tried to create that, and I'll walk through that with you in a moment. We also tried to create a space that was flexible, that gave you a lot of ability to change the use of an individual area. We have an activity room. Adam, where's that activity room up there? Thank you. And that will be used for exercising, for jazzercise, for yoga, but it will also be used for, we'll be able to take tables in on casters and chairs on casters and use it for different activities that require that type of work. We are trying to be so flexible. I did bring a picture of this for you. And we actually save money by doing this. We're using some movable walls. Thank you. Which will be electrified when we want them to be, and we'll be able to move those around so that we can make more use of the different spaces. Just 1 second. We've created finishes for the space that are very warm and inviting, rather neutral at this point, and then we'll use elements like paint and furniture, chairs to add the color. That way it will last much longer. You won't have to make as many changes, and it won't get tired looking in a few years. So we're really trying to create longevity for you. It's a warm and inviting space. There's a lot of natural light. We've added some side lights to bring the light through into different areas that may not be getting light. We have a lot of storage that we've been able to accomplish. I'll walk over and I'll show it to you in a minute. We have different areas. We have an activity room. We have an activity room storage area. We have a small data room. It used to be large. We've actually made it smaller so that we can utilize the space more efficiently, the extra space. We have a break area, we have a lounge area, we have an open area for classes. We have a 3D laser printer room, which will be very effective. And that is actually right near a door. So if there is any ventilation that's required, we'll have the ventilation right there for us, and we won't have to add construction costs to make that happen. We have an art area with an art sink and art storage. We have a meeting room that I think it's a small meeting room, but I think it'll be effective to have that on your site. We have, of course, an ADA compliant restroom. We have a Chamber of Commerce office, and we have a detached storage room that is adjacent to the Chamber of Commerce area, and it can be used for Chamber of Commerce and for anything else that needs to be stored. So I'm going to walk over there and just show you when you walk in, where you'd walk in from Tamil Vista. Do you want to see this, or are we good without it? I don't know.
I would just note one thing. This extra storage room was something that we didn't actually know that was part of the lease space back in April, about a year ago. It turns out that's a good separate entire room, I think it's about 400 square feet. Am I right about that? Around 400 square feet?
It's close to that.
Close to that, of just available storage for the town. It can also be used by the Chamber of Commerce, but I think was a nice bonus to that we were unaware of prior to about last August or so.
When you come in from Tamil Vista, most frequently you would enter right over here. We have a reception area, a reception desk over here, and this will be the administrative area that the reception people will work at. Right across from here, we have a little seating area. When you go, this will be a side light, so you'll be able to be from the entry area, look into this activity room. It's a very large activity room, so it's actually will be very, very pleasant to get a lot of things going on in there. This is, of course, that 3D printer room. Right off the activity area, we have the activity room storage, which will be for yoga mats and weights and everything that they use, tables, everything that they will be using in the activity room. Going through this corridor, this will take you to the art sink and the art counter. There'll be storage above it. And then walking back into this area, our little data room is over here. When you come in from the main area, if you go straight to the back, our break area is here. We'll have a sink, we have a dishwasher, we have a refrigerator, we have a good counter work for people to put food together. Over here we'll have a water bottle filling station, tables for people to enjoy each other, mahjong, dominoes, and eat. Here we'll have two large storage cabinets, and we have a counter in the middle. This is the open space. And right now we're planning on hard flooring in this area, and in this area will have carpet tiles. This is the new meeting room. Going right back in here, the restroom is up at the top, and then we have the Chamber of Commerce area. So it's a very useful, it's an open flow. Those movable walls can be used in here, they can be used in here, they can be used anywhere that you want them. They do plug in, so we can get power into it. You can have a marker board on them. You can have a shelf on it. They're very flexible, and you're not stuck with one thing. You can put it on, you can take it off, you can do whatever you want. And we get to bring in some color in that area as well. So are there any questions as to design?
I think we're going to take questions after we'll get through it, but that's okay. And then the other thing to note, there's a very large patio, outdoor patio, of course, that can have tables and chairs, outdoor tables and chairs, some shade with beautiful views to Mount Tam as well. So I think that everybody, the whole team thinks that will be a well-utilized space as well that will add to the usable square footage of the intergenerational center. There's some other slides here. So that was just a graphic layout of you can move past that one, more descriptive. Another one of the plans in the plan set that just shows some of the cabinet storage areas that I think Rosalind had discussed, some large storage areas. These are the kitchen area with the cabinets as well, the ADA bathroom on top. I didn't include all the plans in the presentation because a lot of them are just really technical and with the electrical and mechanical drawings as well. So it not very descriptive. So at this point, obviously, we're here tonight. This is about essentially getting into the construction phase of the project. The next step really is tonight, the public bid and advertising that public bid and awarding the bid and taking care of contract documents to get a contractor able to start work, which could take approximately 2 months. Simultaneously, we'll be going through the building permit process, which is about 1 month. Obviously, the contractor will not be able to start before the building permit is issued. And then we're expecting a build out of approximately 4 months from the construction start date. And at this point, if this were to be awarded this evening, or authorized this evening. We're expecting approximately an October 2026 opening date. During the construction process, there's other work that would need to be done, including a sign permit would need to be, we need signage for the exterior of the site. That's going to be a separate process. Furniture purchasing, we have a budgeted amount for that. Obviously, we're trying to keep those as low as possible, given the cost of construction. And as well, really importantly, obviously finalizing some programming, hiring instructors and staff to help run the space. And so that's the general overview or outline of where we are today and the next steps needed to get to opening and complete construction and open the space. I think, do we have any other? I want to make sure. So we also, this is obviously an important slide. I'll just acknowledge up front. This is an estimate of the construction costs to build out the space based on the plan set that you've seen pieces of and that's been described today. $360,000 plus a construction contingency of $36,000, approximately $400,000 of a net anticipated project cost. We have some funding sources in place already, as I mentioned, but ultimately this would be paid for primarily from the sales tax fund, about $342,400. And with that, I note in the staff report that is significantly more than what was projected about a year ago from a budget standpoint, and I will say that it was a rough estimate based on conversations at that time without talking to contractors or knowing the details of actually what would need to be constructed at that time, of about $200,000. And so essentially from the sales tax fund, if you include the soft costs, we're looking at approximately $200,000 more than what was anticipated or budgeted. I shouldn't budgeted it at in the fiscal year 25-26 budget. And with that, I certainly want to open this up and allow, I mean, this again, because we have the council subcommittee can add to Rosalind's presentation or anybody else to add to this. But I think at this point we're available. Chris Good is also, I'm going to leave him an opportunity to provide some comment as well. So Chris, at this time, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Hi, Adam. I think you pretty much covered it. Basically, we're requesting authorization to bid up to 360,000, which is also the engineer's estimate. So in the case that bids come in higher than that amount, we would just have to return to council to request authorization to award that. Or if it's too high, then alternatively to reject bids. So just wanted to mention that, but I think you covered everything else as far as bidding the project.
And I would mention there's some options available to the council tonight if it wishes to break this into pieces to see where the bids come in. That's an option it could consider as well. But obviously, anything that breaks this into a couple pieces probably will incur some additional time or delay. So I just wanted to mention that. I'm just recognizing that the budget number is higher than we anticipated, and so. But we think we're hopeful that when we put this out, we'll get a responsible bid that would come in under the $360,000. I think we're available for questions.
Come back to me.
Oh, you want me to come back to you? Okay. So, Fred, were you, Councilman Cassis, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I just have a couple. Just clarify, the $60,000 soft cost, that's included in the 360?
No, it's not. It's on top of it.
Okay, so when we're looking at projected costs of 396, we have to add in that 60,000 in
Well,
off costs?
not for the bid. So, and this is, so we've essentially the the design services that we're already paying for are approximately $60,000. I added that as a footnote or the second slide, trying not to confuse matters, but that's more relevant as we discussed the budget number that we had, because the budget number of $200,000 from the sales tax fund included TI, tenant improvements, and soft costs. So the actual bid amount though is correct at the 360 plus the 10% contingency.
So I guess what I'm trying to say, I'm trying to figure out the all-in costs. So if I look at this, it's three on that slide, it's the 396 plus another 100,000 between the additional costs. So we're looking at almost $500,000.
Correct.
Okay. And how did we go above the 200? How did the budget double from the original 200 or low 200s? And was anybody monitoring as we were going along to try to rein in any of these costs?
I think we started with a project philosophy of just doing the bare minimum needed to actually, as you can see, it's pretty simple. There's not a lot of partitions. We tried to use all the electrical and mechanical infrastructure that we could. I think it's more a matter of not having a great idea of how much the cost would be at the beginning of this process. And so I wish there was a way to say that we had a better way of estimating what the build out might be. I think there are some costs I've heard in talking to Bernie and a commercial contractor, there are some increases just due to over the last year, construction costs have gone up. So I think that's a piece of it. But I don't think, we really did anything, as you know, being part of this process, we really tried to do the bare minimum needed to get a functional space and not go above board. There are some items, I mean, this is one of the things that we can look at if need be, some value engineering, and we can sharpen our pencils. We'd probably have to do that before putting this back out to bid though. But it's not a significant amount of savings if we were going to do that, so I'd just chalk it up to, we do our best to sort of, it was talking to Vesa, I was talking to the architect we had at the time who we were talking to about what would something like this cost on the conceptual plan. Those were sort of the numbers we were given at that time, and that's what I budgeted for. But obviously when you actually get all the detailed work, we're looking at higher costs, obviously.
Okay. And then it may be more of a Chris question. How confident are you on the engineer's estimate? In other words, do you think it's going to go over? Or what's your level of confidence that, and I know it's not 100% guaranteed. I'm just trying to judge if you have some kind of a confidence level that, yeah, we're going to get close to that number, or if it's going to be like way over.
It's a little bit hard to say. This is kind of outside of Public Works, usual projects. We typically deal with, streets and infrastructure. So the engineer's estimate on this one was actually provided by Bernie in our community development division. So I can't really speak too much to expectations. I mean, engineer's estimate is always like our best guess of what it's going to be. So it's hard to say at this point.
I will say I did some work on this last week as well with Bernie, and as well with Joe Malin, does commercial construction. Just roughly showed him the plans and said, hey, what do you think? He came in a little higher. I basically kind of averaged them out. Obviously it's a little bit of an art form of where you don't want to put it too high so that when you get the bids, they're pushing it up. But you want to be realistic so that you can get a bid that to come in and that's responsible and it's a good contractor, but below that number. So I think I don't know, Rosalind, maybe you can speak to that given your experience with other projects.
Yeah, I think that the number that you're looking at now is it's a very I think we have to work hard to get to that number. And I think we have a meeting on Thursday with our committee, And I think that will be a good time to look at some of the elements and value engineer some of them right now. Most of the projects I work on, we don't value engineer until after the bid comes in, because then we get to look at each category and we get to decide what we want to give up, what's worth giving up, what are we getting really some good money by giving up. We can't do that in this particular, the way your process works, I'm told. So I think that what we can do is I did make a whole list of areas that we can go back, and it may not be, we have everything that's been specified is really very medium priced, and nothing is over the top, not at all, but it still could be a little higher than we want to spend. So I think it'll be a good thing if we can on Thursday to go. I have the whole list of categories that we'll go through and have to pull back on some of them and make decision as to what's worth pulling back on and what not. And that would be my suggestion, because right now to get that, I think you will want to probably get the number down a little bit. And I think that number around 400 is pretty realistic, unfortunately.
All right, thanks. I appreciate that. And then if this is over, is there any variance if it's over? If it's over by like $5,000, do you still have to come back to us? So if it's over like $1, I'm just trying to figure out if there's wiggle room where you don't have to come back to us.
That's correct. Yeah, if it's, I mean, the way the staff report's written, if it's $1 over 360,000, then technically I don't have authorization to award it, and we'd have to come back to council.
Okay, and then going back to Adam for a minute, I believe there, at least a year ago, plus or minus, there was potential money from the county. I don't know if that money's still out there again, because just time has gone by. But when we submit this, if we approve this tonight or when we approve this, will you be sending that to the county so they know that this is out for bid and we can see if we can get any funding from them?
Absolutely. I think the right timing on that. Well, actually, I have a meeting tomorrow on this where I can raise this with the county and Supervisor Rodoni's office. But yeah, once we would get a bid back, that's when we can log in and say this is what the cost is going to be. And I think I've been in contact to make sure that the timing is known by the county in terms of when we're going to have a better sense of when we can apply for grants for construction and whatnot.
Okay, and then I'm sorry, just one last question. The Rotary donation of 10,000, that money is actually coming through age-friendly Corte Madera, correct? That's not coming.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, thanks.
No, it's separate, but it was procured through age-friendly.
All right. Any other comments or questions?
Yes. So the putting out the word of what our not to exceed number is certainly indicates that we're not expecting something much lower than that. And I'm just wondering, is it required that we put out the do not exceed number? We have to have that. But then again, we don't have to award a bid if we don't get a bid under that from somebody that we agree is capable of doing the project, right?
Refer to Chris on this one.
So the not to exceed amount is just the amount I, as Director of Public Works, am authorized to award. So that's the kind of only limitation on that. We are always in our right to reject bids if we feel that the cost is too high or really for other reasons. So that's always an option if bids come in too high.
Right. So that said, I would leave the value engineering until after we receive the bids. I don't think we need to start cutting down the size of the refrigerator or whatever else we're talking about if the bids come in too high. Let's do that when we need to do it. I would say, just my opinion.
Do you want to speak to that? Because I'm not sure. Is that something that is commonly done after bids are received?
Oh, sorry, you're asking me?
Yeah, I was asking.
Yeah, I mean, if bids come in high, it's definitely, within our right to reject bids and try and value engineer and to lower the cost to rebid. So that's totally an option. Obviously, that will set back the schedule, but it is an option.
Can I just say one thing? Another way to do this, when things are taken out, when you go and value engineer and the contractor goes back and look at his price, they never give up as much as they added in the first time. So you never get your full amount back when they go back and have to do it again. Another way we can do this is we can keep what we have now, but we can ask for alternate pricing on a few different elements. And so we can have for example, the carpet tile we have, and we can ask for pricing on an alternate carpet tile. That way you'll have all the pricing at one time. You can make up your minds as to what you want, what you can give up, and it makes it easy. It's kind of like a menu that you're looking at. And that's what I would suggest, because the contractors never take out the fair amount when they go back and value engineer and lower the prices.
But that doesn't affect what actually goes out to bid. We still approve that tonight, correct?
Yeah, it wouldn't, if anything,
Okay.
it would only get better. I mean, things would get better, not
That's all
worse.
good.
Yeah.
That's all fine. I just don't want to see this held up any longer. I think we've waited long enough. I'm getting big nods from Age Friendly out there that we want to keep the train on the tracks here. And even though we think it might come in a little high, we'll deal with that when it happens.
Councilman Beckman, I see your hand raised.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I first wanted to just say, unfortunately, I'm going to have to excuse myself from the meeting. I'm homesick, as you know, and I think my energy is leaving me, unfortunately. But I just wanted to leave with the parting comments that I'm very supportive of this project. I think it's a great project. I'm eager to see it move forward expeditiously. I do think, if there are concerns about budget escalation, let's certainly see if we can get creative in sharpening the pencils and figure out where we can find savings without compromising on the excellent program that's been set out. But ultimately, I agree. I think it's important that we don't let that we don't let numbers that come in higher than we expected derail the project, and that we instead just make sure that we figure out how to keep this thing on track and bring this back down to a more reasonable closer in line with what our budget expectations were. So just wanted to just share those comments and say that I'm sorry I'm going to have to leave us.
Please feel better soon.
Feel better.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Right. Councilman Andrews.
Yes. Do you have an architect working on this project with you, or are you doing it yourself? Okay. Who is it?
Yeah, the town hired SKS Architects,
Okay.
Stuart Summers and his firm.
And how detailed are the plans going to be?
The plans are complete, and we have a fully complete plan set already. That's what we're basing the bid on. So it's fully engineered. It's got existing demo engineering with electrical, mechanical, plumbing, and this is where Bernie's expertise has been really helpful too. But yes, absolutely.
Yes, I'm really asking, and I've worked with Stuart, and he's a gem. But I've dealt with some contractors who low bid, and then they rape you on the change orders. And I'm trying to figure out how we can prevent that, but also when we need to make modifications, how soon we can make the decision. Because otherwise, we're going to be talking February when this opens.
I'm not sure. So I think the process as it's laid out now is if if Chris is authorized to advertise for bids, we may wait for this meeting on Thursday. There may be a couple of minor changes to the specifications before we advertise, and then we would send that out. And in talking to Chris, our Public Works Director, Chris Good, we would probably put this out to 3 to 4 weeks and get bids back. And once we obviously get bids back, then we know where we stand with how much this is really going to cost. And then from there, you can award, we're also asking for awarding the bid or the contract to the lowest responsible bidder. And if we do that, that's another probably 4 weeks before construction can start. So I don't know if that helps answer the scheduling question. I think obviously we have a good team all around in terms of folks who can advise
I guess
us.
really what I'm saying is if you're going to run into change orders, you need a quick decision-making process. Because if everything stops for a week, the guy's going to come in with a change order saying, hey.
This is why we have Rosalind helping.
There's no job that goes without any change orders. I mean, it's just impossible. In my 45 years, I've never, ever had a job go without any. But we are very good in this particular plan set.
Okay.
This is it. It's very thorough. We have just about, I mean, I can't think of anything that we've left out of it. We've worked very hard to get everything in to avoid change orders. However, that is the reason I'm suggesting that we put alternates into this and we can do it on Thursday, but before we send it out so that we don't encourage any changes once it goes out. We just make the selections at that time.
And I will just also say, yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I was really happy to, be introduced to Rosalind. And then when I talked to Rosalind, it wasn't just her doing interior design plans. She will be sticking around through the construction process to support us. We also have obviously our own building official who's involved. We have our public works team who are going to be, and Chris and his team are very familiar with change orders, obviously, on their projects and how to quickly evaluate the need and necessity and whether it's actually needed or not. And working all together, I think we're going to be on top of this project, probably over there daily watching what's going on.
Which is an important piece. And that's how you actually avoid changes, is when you're watching over it like that.
All right. Councilman Ravazio.
Yeah, just one more question for Adam. Is it possible, and actually Chris, to put in the issuance, the RFP, that we are interested in, because it's a municipal not-for-profit project, we're interested in ideas for how costs could be contained, that we are looking for recommendations on if there's substitute materials or different appliances or cabinetry or something that we've bid out that they think would be a better deal. Can we make that part of the bidding process, asking for some creativity?
My understanding with the standard bidding, formal bidding procedures is that's not really an option. The contractors are bidding on what we're specifying. That would kind of be more if we went down the design build method, which I don't think would be suitable for a project this size. But there's always the option once we're in construction, if they have recommendations for changes and they can, you can do change orders to change certain things, minor changes, but like during bidding, it's difficult.
I think you answered my question. Yeah, I think Rosalind could tell us how many times change orders resulted in a lower price. Probably not. So, okay. I was just trying to see if there was a way to encourage that creativity.
And I'm sorry, one follow-up question to that. What Rosalind is suggesting about putting alternatives, we can put that into the bid, correct? Or no?
Yes. Yeah. You can have bid alternates that we can choose to award or not award based on the prices we get.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So my question is, looking at this room, this building, it seems like there's like just a lot of open space. And so I'm wondering just how do we get to these numbers? If, is there a lot of, because I'm assuming, prices go up based on things you don't see, things that are behind walls and, these are not the pretty things. So what exactly is being reworked in this building that I'm figuring that's the bulk of the cost are, plumbing and electrical and all of that. So.
Actually, there are many reasons that the prices are high. First of all, prices of construction are high. I mean, that goes without saying. Everything has to be brought up to, everything has to be LED. All your electrical has to be changed to LED fixtures. I mean, it just goes down because of code, actually. There are many things, I'm sorry to Bernie. There are many things that have to be changed in order to accommodate that. So it sounds little, but it isn't little. The wiring has to be changed. Even though we're using existing lighting, the wiring to it has to be changed. The lights, the switches have to be changed. We have to cap off plumbing because of the way it was used. We have to cap off a lot of electrical. We have to change the HVAC, the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. All those systems really cost a lot of money. And even though we are not building many walls, we're still doing an enormous amount of work in the space. So truthfully, even though it sounds like a lot of money, which it is a lot of money, in overall in construction of commercial spaces right now, that is quite low. I was telling Adam, a small medical suite just came in at $267,000, and it's probably not even the size of this room, half the size of this room. So it's just the way, it's unfortunate, but it is the way things are.
Right. Thank you. My point that I'm bringing out is that it's not going to, my thinking is it's not going to be able to be reduced enormously because those basic things are what's driving the cost. And so since I'm kind of known as the penny pincher. So anyway, of course, I had to bring up my penny pinching thing. So just to manage expectations about how much this cost can be reduced, it's, we're not going to get it for half, that's for sure. So anyway.
No.
All right, that was my only question. So now I would like to bring this to excuse me? You were pointing? I was going to bring it to public comment. Do we have anyone in the room who'd like to speak on this item? Please.
Good evening, Mayor Thomas and council members. Carla Condon, and I'm speaking here as the administrator of the Age-Friendly Intergenerational Center and the co-founder. There are a few misinformations that have been published, and I just wanted to clear up some of those items. First of all, you may have read that the Intergenerational Center that started in 2018, this month, 8 years, that it closed in 2020. That is not so. We did not close in 2020. The room was repurposed. It was during COVID. And what we did is, without interruption, we went directly onto Zoom and continued our classes on Zoom. With that, we grew and we ended up expanding, maintaining our whole mission to reduce isolation, and people were able to keep connected with their families, with their relatives, not just locally, but we went beyond the community throughout the nation. It was really great. That we have been funded since the inception of Age-Friendly Intergenerational Center, not to be confused with Corte Madera Intergenerational Center, that we've been funded as a nonprofit through Age-Friendly Solutions, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. All the money from this Age-Friendly Solutions is channeled right to the Age-Friendly Intergenerational Center. We funded all the materials. We funded the cost of outreach. We funded all the instructors, all the materials. Nobody had to buy materials. We funded all the materials. Everything was covered. Everything was free. Fortunately, we had the blessing of the town in 2018 who gave us the space at the community center to operate. We were able to have that space, and the town also funded a part-time staff person and the PG&E and the cleanup. But otherwise, all of the programs were funded through age-friendly solutions. And I do hope with our wonderful instructors that we've had, that those people will be able to continue on when our age-friendly Corte Madera is finally ready to open its doors. It's really been a joy for me today to see the support that we get from our town staff and from the town council, that you have understood the needs of our community so that you will be able to actually adopt our age-friendly Corte Madera and become under the oversight of the town and of Park and Rec. And I thank you very much for getting us this close. Thank you.
One second, turn this on.
I just wanted to put in a few words about the amount of dedication and work that a very small group of us have put into the hope for having a real wonderful place for seniors and young people. And I want to point out that we're very close to the high school. The new center will be close to the high school. We have the hopes of working with teenagers and bringing them over to do activities with us and work with, as we said, intergenerational. Also, I just feel that this is something that Corte Madera, people that I've talked to in Corte Madera are surprised. They haven't heard a lot about it. They're excited. Everybody's excited about it, young and old. And I think it's something that I've only been part of the group for a short period of time, but we were really fortunate. We talked about, we hoped we could have this go forward. Then we had the portion of receiving a nice sum of money. And that money that was bequeathed to us gave us the absolute momentum and motivation that we needed to come to you and try and really get it going. And we feel like we're contributing a lot, and the town of Corte Madera will help us make this dream come true. And it will. Sure it will. And I hope everybody will think positively about this and support it.
I can't follow the wonderful words that Fran and Carla already said. I didn't prepare anything, but I know that it was 2 years ago in February that Adam and Carla and I sat down over a bagel and said, "Can we make this happen?" And Carla said, "Can we make it happen by September?" And yeah, maybe we can have it by September. Yeah, okay. We didn't say what year. I know. So it's been a long slog. I know when we had the original age-friendly intergenerational center, it was the talk of all the age-friendlies in Marin County, and the art people on a California level were talking about it. And we were very, very proud that we were the forefront of starting these intergenerational centers. So I want to maintain that glory for Corte Madera, and I hope that you will bless us with working together. We had this $300,000 grant that we arranged with the town so that the instructors could be covered and people wouldn't have a barrier to participate because they couldn't afford it. So I really, really hope that things work out well. Thank you so much.
And do we have any speakers online?
We have a hand raised from Christine O'Sullivan.
All right. Go ahead.
There we go. I had to unmute. So I just wanted to express gratitude to the town for recreating this physical space for the center and executing it at a quality level that is very respectful of the older adults in the community. And it shows a sincere commitment to commingling residents of all ages. And I just think that I imagine the day when we reveal this and I could see the feeling of really being seen and recognized and encouraged to be part of the other ages within this community. So I just really think it's a very cutting edge idea. The only other intergenerational effort I see in Marin is in seminary. They're going to have senior housing and they're going to have a gym and they're going to have a childcare space, but they're all separate. There's nowhere that really combines and celebrates the combining of ages the way this does. So just wanted to thank everyone for the quality level of commitment you've made to this. think I think we'll see some wonderful results. So thank you.
No other hands raised from attendees online and no emailed public comment for this item.
Okay, thank you. Then I will bring it back to the council for comment.
So as on the committee, I would just love to be the one to make a motion that we approve this. If there's, I think there might be a little bit more to discuss, but as far as the cost, I just did a little math with my calculator. If the tenant improvements go to $500,000, but that covers us in the building for 11 years, that's only $45K a year or a little over $300 a month as our expenses overall for tenant improvements. So it helps put it in perspective that even though it's a big chunk sum, it gives us the space we need for 11 years, in addition to paying our rent, which was pretty reasonable for the space from a commercial standpoint, right? It was a reasonable rent to start with. So I just think the money should work itself out.
So I'll second the motion, but then I have a comment because I'm going to throw it back at you guys because I want to I know staff did a great job on this and we're still moving forward with it. So we're not done with it yet, but I want to thank Carla, Patty, and also I think sometimes they don't get recognized just because they're on the board, but they don't go to some of the meetings that we have. There's Fran, Christine, Richard, and also Cheryl. They're all members of the board of Age-Friendly Corte Madera. And I know I sit in on those meetings and there's been a lot of conversations around this. And also a big thank you to Rosalind. I don't think we could have made it through this process without you. I really mean that. Some of those meetings where it's like, I don't get some of this stuff where it's like, here's one floor, here's 14 different floors, here's colors. That and just trying to work with different mindsets. I think you just did a great job working with people. The bidding thing makes me just a little nervous. Just it is what it is, and I'll accept that. I would suggest though what Raza is saying is come up with alternatives, and I think we're meeting on Thursday, so I think we just hold off for the maybe 2 or 3 days, so we can get through and have maybe Raza submit to you and Chris on Friday or Monday. Give her the weekend. I think that the couple of days, I think it's worth it. But I'm glad we're at this stage. And I always remember what Patty says every time this has come up from the beginning, even to now. She goes, not in my lifetime, but it's going to happen in your lifetime. So don't worry about it. It will.
Hang in there.
And just one last thing, I would just suggest we stay away from saying it's going to open. Maybe I'm too optimistic or pessimistic. Stay away from saying it's going to open October 26th and maybe just say winter 26. I would make it a little bit more broad just to be on the safe side. So
maybe not even
thanks.
26, just say winter. Opening soon.
Well, you don't have to put a sign one way or the other until you're
close.
You make some progress in it. There was something that you said I didn't quite understand about the waiting the couple of days. What were we waiting for?
So Rosin made suggestions, come with alternatives. We're actually meeting, Pat, myself, Patty, and Carla and Rosin are meeting Thursday, which will come up with some of those alternatives. So Chris can include those in the bid package.
Oh,
So if we just wait those couple of days, it just delays him sending out a bid package for a few days.
And it's still okay for us to approve that tonight? Is it? Okay, cool.
okay. Councilmember Andrews. Yeah.
I thought we had a motion and a second on the board.
We did, but then Fred had some comments, so I wanted to just give you that opportunity as well.
I support it. I hope it comes in on time, under budget. But having built out a couple of office spaces, you have a trade-off of time, money, or quality. And we want the best of all three. Okay, so. But can we just vote?
Did we? No, we didn't vote yet.
Can we vote?
We may vote.
Okay, so, and just for the record, the motion is to approve the item as requested, correct? Okay, Councilmember Andrews.
Yes.
Councilmember Beckman is absent. Councilmember Ravazio,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Casissa.
Yes.
Mayor Thomas.
Hmm.
Mayor Thomas?
Yes, I'm thinking. Okay, you've got three. Let's see. Oh boy. Oof,
Yes or no?
I know. Well, I am really, really concerned about cost. I have to say no. So,
Thank you. The motion carries.
okay. All right, then. We are on to our next item, which is consideration and possible adoption of Resolution 12, 2026, accepting the annual report on receipt and use of development impact fees and in lieu fees for the year ended June 30th, 2025, and making findings for such fees that were collected but not expended as required by the Mitigation Fee Act. And that will be presented by Amy Lyle and Chris Petlock.
Thank you, Mayor Thomas. Good evening, members of the council. Amy Lyle, Community Development Director. I know this is the item you've been waiting for all night to talk about fees. So this item is going to be routine in the future, but really this item is about fees and making sure that we're compliant with some area of state law and just increasing transparency. Next slide, please. So this is really related to an area of law around the mitigation fee reporting. And what it does is we're asking you to make findings on an annual report that was put together by our finance director, Chris Petlock, and it relates to the fees that we impose on developments. And so, as you know, there's a variety of different fees that we have in town. And so this report is just basically laying out the funds in all of those accounts and what the money has been spent on and what that ending balance is. And so as part of that, it's the annual report, and then there's a resolution for you to make the required findings, which all of which is delineated in state law. I will say we also have Public Works Director Chris Good, if there are other questions, but he is supporting us on this item as well. Next slide, please. And so this is really just going over the fees that we do have in place. You may be familiar with some of these, and some of them are more obscure and relate to specific areas of town, or even the shoreline parking fees is related to a specific parking lot. But these are the various fees that we have in place that we're required to report out on. Next slide, please. And so I will say, as part of the work plan for this year, We have identified the need to update some of these nexus studies that support these fees. And so you have provided that direction to us. So 2 of the studies are in the process of being updated. So we did release a request for proposals. And so we're in the process of selecting a consultant to help us with that. So our hope is over the next 6 months or so, we can get that process done. So 2 of the fees, at least this year, will be updated. But these are the 2 that we've identified as the most necessary to update those nexus studies. Next slide, please. And so that really summarizes the report in front of you. We're available for questions, but the recommendation is for your adopting the resolution tonight, making the findings. And then just so you know, you will be seeing a similar report at the end of this year for the fiscal year of 25 and 26. And then we will be making new findings every 5 years after that point in time. So that puts us in the cycle that we need to be. And with that, I'll turn it over for any questions that you have.
First of all, thanks. That was probably the best and shortest presentation we've had. So I appreciate that. 2 questions. Park and lieu fees is down to 0. Are we ever expected to pick up any money in that fund? Do you know? And it's fine. I think it was used for the restrooms in Town Park. I'm just wondering if we're going to pick up any fees there.
So that fee is only applied when there's an actual subdivision, and we do not get many subdivisions in town. So as you know, that has been spent down to 0. If the Macy's project were to come in, that is a fee that we would be charging to the Macy's project. That is the fee that we've identified for an update. So most more modern park fees are per square foot dollar amount per development. It's not tied to a subdivision, it's tied to the square footage of a housing unit or something like that. So it's a little bit antiquated the way that it works, but it is only related to subdivisions, of which are rarely done here because we are mostly built out.
Okay. And then the other question is also, hold on, I just lost it. There's one in here about Village Traffic Improvement Fund. Okay. I'm not going to read through. I was trying to figure out what this, because it's talking about extending 3rd lane. There's 3 different things on here, but there's like 754,000 there. Can we take any of that money? So we fronted 3 million for the overpass project. Can we use this money to offset that? So it would reduce our 3 million down to, it would be 2.3 million coming out of the general fund plus the 700,000 to make up the 3 million.
You want to, I mean, it's an interesting suggestion, but I don't think it's really tied to a explicit mitigation measure associated with the general plan associated with, which related to development at the village. And it was really trying to improve the intersection at San Clemente and Redwood, that intersection, because the additional development there would draw additional traffic trips. Now, that said, I think there is
that actually went on and off this report about 3 or 4 times during our compilation. Definitely debated it, and I think maybe some more research might be.
Yeah, I think the difference is it's tied to a metric that is no longer really utilized for traffic mitigation anymore at CEQA. So there's some conversations we're having about how that is there flexibility with that. I think we would have to have the discussion with probably the village and make sure that any change in use of those funds are appropriate, basically appropriately used in an appropriate way.
When we get to that point, I'm sorry, I'll just make a comment, even though I know we're in questions. When we get to that point, I think we should have that conversation with them. Because again, it's 700,000. When I read this, it's talking about extending the 3rd lane on San Clemente. It just seems like all this fits in with that overpass project, because we're never going to build out a 3rd lane on San Clemente.
Well, I don't think we necessarily should say that right now, because I think there was an actual design with the RH project that showed a conceptual plan of how to get more traffic through that intersection with an additional lane that if and when the amount of traffic generated by additional development at the village, you're going to have problems there, is what it was saying. And so if you use it for some other purpose, you're going to have problems with no way to fund, potentially problems with no way to fund that intersection. So I don't know. I think it's not really, I don't want to imply that it's up for grabs at this point in time. It's designated for the specific intersection and that specific traffic improvement project. And that's why they paid that fee at that time,
Okay.
RH and Nordstrom.
I guess what I'm trying to say, it may be worth exploring depending on what happens with Macy's, Caltrans, and it could just be all that stuff just comes together at once, or one comes before the other one. So it's just, I know what you're saying though. All right, thanks.
Councilmember Ravazio. If we were seriously looking at actual traffic, the actual traffic problems over on the east side near the village shops, which is what we should call them, because this used to be called the village. The old square was the village. It still confuses me. When I saw village, I thought Menke Park, but anyway, the area where you cannot get back out from Super Duper Burger and Tamalpais Paint and have to loop all the way around, if there's a real kind of easy to solve traffic issue that could relate to the overcrossing, it's that. And I don't know how to solve it, but if there's money in the budget that we can ask Mace Rich to look, I mean, they're not going to care about that particular intersection, but the town should be kind of keeping that on a list somewhere to get that fixed.
I will say this report is really reflecting the mitigation fees that have been collected, and then there has to be a clear nexus to what they were collected for, which, as Adam said, was in a very old document. It's not that old, I will say, the general plan, EIR. And so, yes, things may have changed over time about what we think it could be used for, but that is specifically earmarked for that project. And so it would take an effort to kind of alter how we want to do that. And then those entities that have paid into it, there would have to be some negotiation. So as of right now, the funds are in that bucket.
And for future fees, like when the big Macy's project comes in,
Mhm.
then we can identify those things that really do need to be fixed in the area, or does it have to stay on their property or
So-
adjacent to their property?
The traffic mitigation fee is the other fee that we are hoping to update. And the goal is to update it before the Macy's project comes in. So we do have more flexibility about what that project would need to contribute to. But right now we are somewhat fixed in that area, what's identified, and then why that fund was created.
Mhm.
Just to clarify, because we keep saying Macy's project, right now there is no proposed project
Correct.
at Macy's, right? I just want to make sure that that's clarified, because we keep saying Macy's project, but there is, at this point in time, there's no proposed project on that property.
Correct, but we are identifying it as a significant housing site in that vicinity that would be subject to this. Yes.
No comment? All right. Do we have anyone on, any public comment either online? It seems we have none in the room.
We do have attendees online and they do not have their hands raised. We also didn't receive any emailed public comment for this item.
All right. So back to the council for comment.
I can make a motion to approve resolution number 12/2026 to make findings and accept the annual report on receipt and use of development and back fees and in lieu fees for the year ended June 30th, 2025.
Second.
Right.
We'll call the names of those present. Councilmember Andrews,
Yes.
Councilmember Ravazio,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Casissa,
Yes.
Mayor Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
All right. Thank you both. All right, so now we will move to. Let me get I get for getting all my papers out of order. Night. Okay, so now we're go for council reports, starting with our town manager.
Thank you. There's a lot of construction going on in town, in case you haven't noticed. I'll start with Menke Park, which started yesterday, that construction project, and they are moving quite rapidly. I will say there's a lot of attention to detail. I talked to the contractor and the owner of the contracting company that we hired, and they're very paying close attention to the vegetation, that some of it which is being saved. There's a tree we're going to try to protect as well that wasn't originally intended to be protected. So anyways, I just was up there today, and that's, I'm sure is being noticed by a lot of people, although we have did quite a bit of noticing in advance, and so haven't gotten any complaints, at least that have gotten to me yet, regarding, you know, parking and whatnot up there. Madera Gardens is actually going to be starting, at least the contractor will be out on site sort of doing best management practices tomorrow. That's a much lengthier project. The paving work won't really start until summer. We try to time that so it's not during school time, but a significant project. I guess on the positive side, we talk about budgeting. We had actually, the council had authorized about, I think, $3.25 million for that project, and that came in at 2.814. So some cost savings there from a budgetary standpoint. So, and then I wanted to also mention our website is undergoing an update, and I want to thank Mike Moriarty and Lorena for helping to spearhead that effort. As you know, it hasn't been updated in quite a bit, and I think looking at where people sort of ease of navigation and where people kind of click the most, we're trying to highlight those areas and bring also some of our other important work to the forefront, such as like Sanitary District 2 was sort of buried in some of the having to get there. So that will go, right now it's scheduled to go live on April 21st. So just you'll see a new bold color actually introduced to the website as well. So be on the lookout for that. And that is all I have.
Great, thank you. Would like to go next?
Just a couple things. Let's see. The first thing I went to, I think, was the wonderful firefighters pinning, where they were showing who was promoted from EMT to engineer and on up to captain, and what an impressive group of guys. And their suits were amazing. But the guys were really awesome too, and I'm very excited to see we have such a good, strong firefighter force when we're going to be looking to build new fire stations. I think they're going to be helpful in that. Number two, the MCCM meeting at the, no, wait, where was that meeting? That was at here. So forget that one. Yes, I attended it, but I wanted to tell you that I attended the big grand opening of the Larkspur Library, and it's wonderful. And we're all welcome. We are treated just as regular Larkspur card holders, no extra charge. And they have wonderful things like a community room you'll be able to use on your own at night for your book club, using the lockbox key on the exterior door. So they're really opening it up to the community in kind of new ways. Exciting stuff. Number three, everybody should know that the big yard sale at the community center is on Saturday. And if you want to contribute, you can take your goodies, anything that you think might sell, down to the rec center on Friday. And the most exciting thing I did recently was hear Rosa Thomas sing at the town band's 30th anniversary gala concert. It was a beautiful night and a beautiful song and a beautiful singer. And I understand she's been asked for future engagements, and the Corte Madera Town Band got an invite to play at the Rose Bowl in Larkspur as a result of all the great reviews that they got. But they may not be able to do it because they don't actually rehearse over the summer. So I'd have to probably get them a little more money if we wanted that to happen. And we're Probably not going to come there. But anyway, exciting things happening. You'll get a chance to see Rosa again, I'm sure. That's all.
Thanks. 318, I attended Age-Friendly Corte Madera meeting. One thing there, mark your calendars. I can't say that word. May 31st is when we celebrate our residents that are over the age of 90. I can't say that word for some reason. 319 attended Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority meeting there. Just one thing to note, and it was when they passed that tax, they were allowed to raise that fee. I think it's either 3% or CPI, whichever is lower. So that's going to be raised 2.5%. I think originally that was like $10 when it first came out per square foot. I think now it's up to like a little bit over $11. Also on 414, I attended along with Rosa and Pat the Central Marin Fire Department pinning ceremony, which was impressive. Yesterday, I attended a Marin Transit Board meeting, two things there, which I brought before. It's called Mascots. All the transit agencies in Marin and Sonoma got together, figured out regional planning. Those schedule changes take effect on the 12th of April. And it's supposed to make everything more efficient. So for example, Golden Gate Transit has reduced some of their runs. So instead of running from San Francisco all the way up to Santa Rosa, they're running from San Francisco up to Novato, but it's coordinated with Smart Train. So when you get off Golden Gate Transit, you'll be able to take Smart Train into Sonoma County. There's other scheduling changes like that. They're trying to make it efficient on a regional level, which makes complete sense. The other thing I was totally impressed with is that Marin Transit came up with a community capacity building cohort. What they did is they partnered with Canal Alliance. They had like 15 individuals, all out of the canal, Spanish speaking, and they trained them. They had Zoom meetings. They trained them on Marin Transit, how Marin Transit works. They toured the facilities. They rode the buses, and they basically provided feedback also to Marin Transit. And that was everything from cleanliness of the buses to how the drivers acted. Yeah, it was really impressive the way they did that. There was 5 of them that came to do a presentation. Next steps with that is they're looking at using them for ambassadors, and then also expanding that program. But one of the key thing is they have people that are actually utilizing the buses that are providing real feedback. It's not just a focus group. It's like live, real action type stuff. So it was just really impressive the way that they came about with that programming. And that's it.
And Councilman Andrews. Okay. Well, on 326, I attended the TAM commissioners meeting where the commission adopted the Measure AA expenditure plan 15-1. Just so you all know, I wrote some other things, but I think I'll just wrap it up with saying that will come before our body at our next meeting, where it will need to be adopted to move it forward. Every town in all 11 towns in Marin, plus the Board of Supervisors, will review it and make their approvals. The biggest things, it's pretty much the same. It gets reviewed every 6 years, but some big changes is the new Reimagine Roadways program to fund large multi-jurisdictional projects. So I think that's going to be a very important thing. Do we need to do the 9:30?
I was hoping you could just talk fast.
Okay.
Unless
Talk fast.
I'll look to our town attorney. Can
Yeah.
we sneak by with 2 more minutes, or do we need to do a motion?
She can finish talking by the time we do all this.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and make a motion. We extend the meeting half an hour.
I'll second.
Councilmember Andrews? Councilmember Ravazio?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Casissa?
Yes, and I tried.
Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
All right. Okay. So I'll just get through this really quickly. So, yeah. So the multi-jurisdictional projects, I think that's a really good idea that they have, and then updates to the program and eligibility and administration. And they also added something to prioritize or at least call out wildlife crossings. so that if there is a roadway that is being improved, their wildlife crossings will be considered as part of it. Then on 4/3, of course, the band concert. The band was just amazing. It was wonderful to work with them, and it was just an honor. And then also the pinning ceremony and MCCMC. And that's what I did in the last couple weeks. So with that, we may adjourn this meeting. Oh, one more thing. Let's reopen the meeting. We have one more thing. Not so fast. Does anyone have any additions or changes to the agenda for the next meeting?
I will say we are expecting the audit to be presented at the next meeting too.
Okay. Great. All right then. So now, re-adjourned.